Chapter 765. The fourth elder said to Li Sijiao with a smile, "Honorable lady, you're here?" Li Sijiao nodded slightly and said, "Our Tianyi school has decided to help you get rid of the traitors this time." Hearing this, the fourth elder immediately became excited. With a smile on his face, he said to Li Sijiao, "As long as you can help us get rid of the traitors, that's the best." Li Sijiao clenched her fists. "Gee, you don't blame me. This time, it's our Tianyi school who took action. I didn't violate the agreement." The fourth elder smiled slightly. Of course, of course." After he left, Li Sijiao waved her hand and 12 people appeared behind her. In the secret realm, Ji successfully broke through to the profound earth realm. This matter was known by the entire Tianyi school. In order to catch this disobedient guy who escaped from the Tianyi school, they landed on the ground. After raising their heads, they flew up and disappeared in an instant. Outside the Tianyi school, 2 disciples were yawning and complaining about the damn weather when suddenly, a gust of evil wind blew past. A few people landed outside the gate. They stared at the disciples guarding the gate with burning eyes. The disciples guarding the gate swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Why did these people look so ferocious? One of the black-robed people took 2 steps forward and stretched out his hand. In an instant, he grabbed the necks of the 2 disciples. They struggled in his hand while gasping for breath. "Oh no, the enemy is here." As he shouted these words, a long sword pierced his chest. He instantly fell into a pool of blood. The remaining few people quickly came forward. They opened their hands and said to the person in front of them, "Boy, you've got guts. Who the hell are you?" The black-robed person sneered disdainfully. "Who am I? Ask your schoolmaster to come out, and you'll know." At this time, Yi Chuchu walked out and frowned. "Who are you?" Hearing this, the 2 people couldn't help but laugh. "Who are we? Yi Chuchu, don't you recognize us?" They took off the black robes and hats on their heads. Yi Chuchu's heart thumped. Good heavens, they were actually the ones who tried to steal his treasure last time. Seeing that Yi Chuchu recognized them, they weren't nervous at all. They only coldly said, "Yi Chuchu, obediently hand over Jiyu. Otherwise, today will be the day of the destruction of Grade Tool sect." Yi Chuxin sneered. "Is that so? That will depend on your abilities." "Humph. We, the 12 Saint Emissaries, are the guardians of the first heaven gate. Since you don't know what's good for you, don't blame us for being impolite." They stepped on the ground one after another. Rings appeared on the ground one after another, emitting golden light. Looking at these circles, the violent aura of profound energy was gradually increasing fiercely. Suddenly, a ball of purple light pounced towards Yi Chuxin. Yi Chuxin could only retreat quickly. Standing in place and looking around, Yi Chuxin coldly snorted. In the blink of an eye, a mass of intense light was contained in his hands. In the blink of an eye, that ball of light covered the entire world. As it gradually pressed down, Yi Chuxin anxiously shouted, "Oh no," in his heart. At the same time, his figure suddenly retreated. In the blink of an eye, he appeared 3 feet away. However, the other party didn't give up and directly twisted his hands. At this moment, the 2 pincer attacks swept over from all directions. He slammed heavily into the wall, only to see cracks appear on the wall in an instant, letting out a loud, cracking sound. Accompanied by the sound of breaking, the surrounding people flew over. Several people around him flew out in an instant and landed on the ground. Their eyes were fixed on Jiyu. Jiyu snorted coldly. The profound energy of the earth profound realm suddenly surged. That profound energy directly vibrated in all directions, suppressing everyone. Those black-robed people were slightly surprised. How could a brat at the 3rd level of the earth profound realm have such a strong sense of oppression? At this moment, they suddenly jumped up. They landed on the wall and looked down. In the blink of an eye, they saw that Jiyu had stabbed the Kuan Peng giant sword in his hand into the wall. He has the support of the fire element profound energy. Everyone be careful. The 6th brother of the 12 saints hurriedly shouted in panic. In the blink of an eye, they flew up and disappeared from where they were. In the blink of an eye, Jiyu landed on the ground. He raised his head and looked forward. Jiyu said indifferently, "Be careful." After shouting these words, the rest of the people quickly rushed in Jiyu's direction. Jiyu was not in a hurry. She just waited for the right time to strike. She instantly activated the 3,000 clouds movement. Chapter 766. Like a ghost, he instantly activated his movement skill and disappeared from his original spot in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, he appeared not far away. After his figure appeared, the rest of the people surrounded Jiyu. Jiyu turned around and used his Xian energy to activate the Kuan Peng giant sword not far away. His figure flashed and disappeared from his original spot. After a moment, Jiyu appeared not far away. The two of them quickly dashed forward. He suddenly punched out. The 12th of the 12 Saint emissaries suddenly let out a scream. Then he fell into the crowd. Jiyu turned around and disappeared from his original spot. After a moment, he appeared not far away. The rest of the people were dumbfounded. An expert of the 5th level of the Earth Profound Realm died. Just like that? It was unbelievable. The remaining 11 Saint emissaries snorted coldly. "Kid, you're too arrogant." Jiyu's figure flashed. After a moment, he flew to another place. The Xian energy in his hand quickly gathered and condensed in his palm. Then, he slapped the ground fiercely. Boom! A loud sound was heard. A ball of white light soared into the sky, faintly covering the sky. Jiyu disappeared from his original spot in the blink of an eye. The leader of the 12 Saint emissaries felt a little bitter in his heart. If he knew that this kid was so difficult to deal with, he wouldn't have come here. He smiled bitterly. "Get into formation." The rest of the people turned their heads to look at him and nodded heavily. At this moment, they landed on the ground. After looking at each other, they slowly moved back. Jiyu landed on the ground and looked around. He disappeared from his original spot in an instant. In the blink of an eye, Jiyu disappeared from his original spot. The formation was quickly linking up, forming a huge mouth of a Xian beast. He landed on the ground, and the two of them looked at each other. The remaining 11 Earth Xian experts suddenly flew up and landed on the ground, slamming their bodies on the ground. In an instant, the Xian energy on the ground exploded. A wicked smile suddenly appeared on Jiyu's face. The person in the middle of the array was slightly stunned. What exactly was going on? He did not know what happened, but in the blink of an eye, he flew up and landed not far away. Their bodies flashed and appeared not far away in an instant. The remaining people turned their heads and looked in the direction of Jiyu. Suddenly, several poisonous snakes flew out from the array. They opened their mouths and hissed. In an instant, those venomous snakes suddenly flew into the air. Seeing those poisonous snakes closing in, Jiyu disappeared in the blink of an eye. A moment later, he stood at the peak and looked down. 11 people were entangled by this poisonous snake formed from Xian Qi. Regardless of whether they killed one or two of them, it was as if there was an endless number of poisonous snakes leaping forward and biting their necks. Although the Earth Profound Realm experts had a certain level of resistance against poison, there were too many of them. They were constantly bitten by the poisonous snakes. Blood spurted out in an instant. The remaining cultivators exchanged glances, then appeared in front of Jiyu. "Jiyu," he said coolly. "Good job, kid." He flew up and landed on the ground in the blink of an eye. At the same time, he raised the magical weapon in his hand. He pointed it in Jiyu's direction. In the blink of an eye, he was the only one left of the 12 Saint envoys. He gasped for breath and said, "I didn't expect you to set up another formation on top of our formation. We were caught by the trap you set. Brothers, let's retreat." After shouting these words, the remaining people looked at each other and disappeared in a flash. Jiyu took 2 steps forward and said indifferently, "Kill. You want to leave? You can't." His large hand grabbed forward, and in an instant he caught the person in his hand. Then he abruptly pulled the person behind him. Suddenly, the person fell to the ground. He looked at Jiyu in shock. Jiyu said indifferently, "Mystic skill, wind-splitting blade. Mystic skill, raging inferno. Mystic skill, cool breeze wood scent. Mystic skill, heavenly thunder annihilation. Mystic skill, golden light path. One mystic skill after another was displayed. The other party was so shocked that his mouth was wide open and he couldn't say a word. The leader of the 12 Saint Envoys never expected Jiyu to be able to use 5 types of elemental Xian energy. He was shocked. He knew that he couldn't go back today. So he gritted his teeth and cut his palm. A plume of black smoke disappeared from his palm. At the same time, the life treasure descended and pierced into the opponent's body, causing him to scream in pain. Jiyu looked at the cloud of black smoke on the ground. At this moment, Li Sijiao and the others also saw the last image of the Saint Envoys. When the remaining people saw this image, they were so shocked that they couldn't say a word. 5 types of inherited power? How'd he do it? Chapter 767. They said indifferently, Saintess, what should we do? Report to the Tianyi school and let the schoolmaster make the decision. After hearing this, a smile appeared at the corners of their mouths. Yes, Saintess. After saying this, they looked at each other and stood up. They took out a piece of white jade from their bosom and injected their profound energy into the white jade. After a loud crack, the white jade began to shatter. Along with the cracking sound, the white jade broke. The remaining few people suddenly appeared in their original positions and looked forward. The schoolmaster of the Tianyi school was shocked. He never expected that such a thing would happen. He took 2 steps forward and said indifferently, Everyone, the status of our Tianyi school is now under threat. The 2 protectors lowered their heads and asked, What if the people of the 10,000 Immortal Alliance come out to stop us? After hearing this, they lowered their heads and fell into deep thought. We are one of the 10 great sects. Can we still listen to their orders? After saying this, the schoolmaster of the Tianyi school closed his eyes. He didn't expect that the 12 Saint Envoys, who suppressed the 10 great sects, would be killed by Jiyu not far away. After seeing this scene, they looked at each other and stood up. The schoolmaster of the Tianyi school stood up. The profound world realm. However, the profound world realm was already the peak of strength in this province. He let out a long breath and said, Lead everyone and follow me. After shouting out those words, the 100,000 disciples of the Tianyi Palace all stood up in unison. They all walked forward and flew forward on their precious artifacts. Ji took a step forward. In the blink of an eye, they had already arrived at the Divine Evolution Temple. The experts of the profound sky realm were covered in blue light. This was not something they could resist. Therefore, the smart schoolmaster of the Tianyi school gave up on suppressing the other side and turned around to focus on dealing with Jiyu. After making up their minds, they walked forward and disappeared in the blink of an eye. A large number of Xian cultivators gathered at the foot of the mountain of the Grade Tool sect. The head of the Tianyi school raised his hand high. Just as he was about to give the order, the sound of battle cries suddenly came from all directions. It turned out that Jiyu had mobilized millions of troops and were charging in the direction of the gate. Furthermore, all of these troops possessed profound strength. The sect master of the Tianyi school was stunned. How did Jiyu manage to mobilize such powerful Xian energy? It must be the help of the 3 great empires. However, how could the 3 great empires dare to make a move against our First Heaven Society? Many of their disciples are members of our First Heaven Society. Pass down the order. Apart from family and friends, kill everyone else. After saying this, they glanced at each other and said, Kill. More than 100,000 disciples of the Tianyi school flew up and landed on the ground. They took out their treasured weapons and charged forward. All kinds of dark force lights shone brightly. Although they were soldiers who had experienced hundreds of battles on the battlefield, under the enormous amount of profound energy, when a high-level profound practitioner entered the army, it was as if the god of death had descended. They started killing in all directions. In an instant, blood dyed the ground red. They sucked in a breath of cold air. The remaining people fell to the ground one after another. After seeing this scene, they flew up and started killing in all directions. They flew in a sea of blood, and the people around them instantly increased in number. The rest of the people were surrounded. They suddenly shouted and charged downward. At this moment, the ground seemed to be trembling. In the end, the 100,000 disciples of the First Heaven Society killed more than 500,000 of them. The rest of the people looked at each other. They instantly flew forward and landed on the ground. They stretched out their fists and punched out. Boom, boom, boom. They hit the ground 3 times. Another circle of people fell to the ground. The people of the divine evolutionary temple looked at each other and clenched their fists. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared from where they were. In the blink of an eye, they landed on the ground. They raised their heads, picked up their treasured weapons, and charged forward. The remaining people fell into a pool of blood. Jiyu said indifferently, "Let's go." After shouting this, the people of the divine evolutionary temple joined the battle. They raised the treasured weapons in their hands. Many people in front of them joined the battle. The treasured weapons bombarded forward. Several people fell into a pool of blood. After landing on the ground, Jiyu suddenly turned around and attacked with her sword. 2 human profound realm experts fell into a pool of blood. Jiyu, you're injured, aren't you? The 5 guardians of the First Heaven Society found Jiyu at the same time. Jiyu suddenly shouted, "Li Sijiao, the first thing you do is to protect me." Li Sijiao gritted her teeth. She didn't want to move, but there was a surge of qi and blood in her body. She had to make a move. With that thought in mind, she landed on the ground in an instant. She faced the enemy head-on with her sword. Chapter 768. Boom, with another crash, they all fell backwards one after another. They landed on the ground in an instant. Their gazes were fixed on Jiyu. The 2 of them had their backs to each other, and a strange feeling filled her heart. She didn't expect that she would end up standing on Jiyu's back. Even though she had sworn a Taoist oath, Jiyu was too bold. After thinking of this, the 5 protectors attacked at the same time. The Tianyi sect chose the 5 protectors based on the 5 elements. In an instant, the power of water filled the air. Li Sijiao's dark energy was suppressed, so she had no choice but to retreat. Jiyu slapped her hands on the ground. In an instant, the power of water swarmed up. An enormous power of water swept up into the sky. The tornadoes gathered, solidified into ice, and gradually fell down. The ice spikes fell to the ground one after another and stayed where they were. In the blink of an eye, they charged toward Jiyu. The remaining people watched as Jiyu charged forward in the blink of an eye. The 2 of them exchanged a huge palm strike. Jiyu flew forward in the blink of an eye. The 5 protectors didn't expect Jiyu to be so difficult to deal with. They flew forward and landed outside the circle of light. Jiyu slapped the ground. In an instant, countless ice spikes fell from the sky. At this moment, the protective energy of the 5 protectors shattered instantly. They sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, the people around them looked at each other. Jiyu landed on the ground and looked forward. She took a deep breath. In the blink of an eye, Jiyu ran 2 steps forward. Jiyu looked down and said calmly, "You've lost." The 5 protectors only felt that they were holding their breaths, but they couldn't say anything. Just now they were still looking down on everyone, but they didn't expect that in an instant, the 5 protectors would sigh. They were probably done for today. The remaining protectors landed on the ground and took a step forward. They looked at each other and stood up. The head of the Tianyi Palace had no choice but to do it himself. At this critical moment, the 4th Elder's reinforcements arrived. There were also 12 experts at the 5th stage of the Earth Profound Realm. The remaining people instantly flew out. In the blink of an eye, they flew out and stepped into the crowd. Immediately, the group of 12 people flew out and came forward. In the blink of an eye, Jiyu flew out and a ball of profound energy gathered in his palm. Jiyu said indifferently, "All of you back off." Li Sijiao snorted coldly before she turned around and left. The remaining people of Grade Artifact Sect instantly flew to their original spot and glanced at each other. The profound energy in his hands struck the ground. The remaining people looked at each other and stood up. He quickly twisted his body. Jiyu quickly threw out the artifact in her hand. The artifact pierced into the body of a human profound expert, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. His body fell to the ground in an instant. Blood slowly flowed out from his mouth. The head of Great Artifact Sect looked back at Ji. I can't thank you enough for your kindness. Ji raised his hand and shouted, Go. This sentence represented the thoughts of the two people. The two people looked at each other and nodded slightly. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared from their original spot. The remaining people looked at each other and stood up. Ji took out her artifact. In the blink of an eye, the artifact flew out. A piece of artifact flew forward. That piece of artifact fell to the ground. The surroundings shook as Xian Qi was injected into the treasure. The Xian Qi instantly danced in all directions as the Xian Qi heavily collided with the treasure. At this time, their bodies flashed and they all appeared beside Ji. Ji swung his sword. The remaining people gradually took a step forward and said to Ji indifferently, Kill. After shouting out those words, the collision between the treasures became even more intense. Ji and the head of Great Artifact Sect fought together. After the 5 swords collided, their bodies flashed and they retreated. After the two people looked at each other, the profound energy in their palms slammed onto the ground at the same time. That ball of Xian energy gathered and flew towards another direction. They were instantly sent flying and crashed into the mountain gate. At this time, they spat out a mouthful of blood. After seeing this scene, they took a deep breath. The two people beside them looked at each other. In the blink of an eye, Ji's body flashed, and she disappeared from her original spot. Only then did the head of the First Heaven Sect fly down. Preposterous! How can I accept your humiliation? I will pour my profound soul into it. Kill! A surge of majestic dark force quickly gathered. At this moment, the remaining dark force rapidly gathered together. At this moment, the ball of dark force rapidly fell down. It crashed onto the ground. Chapter 769. The dark force on the Tianyi sect's head suddenly soared. He was as tall as a giant. He swept his hands across. The gorgeous, profound energy suddenly scattered in all directions, passing through everyone's body. After being penetrated by this inexplicable, profound energy, they all fell down one after another. They fell to the ground. The Great Tool sect was originally ranked the lowest among the 10 great profound sects. After being attacked by a huge force, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fell into a pool of blood. He clutched his chest. The dark force in his body had been mostly depleted. As for the remaining disciples of the high-grade mysterious sect, when they first saw the Tianyi school, they all felt like they were facing a great enemy. Then, because they were in the middle of the crowd, they were killed 7 times in and 7 times out. Their robes were dyed red with blood. Their chests were all pierced by this dark force. Their bodies went limp, and in the blink of an eye, they fell into a pool of blood. Seeing this scene, they felt despair in their hearts again. When they were facing despair, another strange force appeared and brought them great hope. When they were extremely excited, the Tianyi sect's head made a move and brought them despair again. How many times could a person take such a blow in a day? 4 to 5 times was already the peak. But they never expected that the Tianyi sect's head would wave his hand and the remaining 3 guardians would fly up at the same time. In the blink of an eye, they instantly landed in front of Ji. A mass of dark force was contained in their hands. They slammed heavily on the ground. Their bodies flashed, and they came in front of Ji. Suddenly, they slowly stabbed at Ji. The remaining people flew forward, and the precious weapons in their hands suddenly exploded. After the explosion, the surrounding people dodged to the side and disappeared in the blink of an eye. After a while, they appeared in the same place. Ji said calmly, Elders, retreat now. For Sijiao's sake, I can still spare the lives of the Tianyi sect. If you don't retreat, your sect will be wiped out. Who are the 3 great elders of the Tianyi sect? How could they be threatened by you? The idea was good, but they were powerless to fight back. In the crowd, Ji was like a crazy god of death, wandering among them. In the blink of an eye, she appeared in front of Ji. They looked at each other and came out. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Ji. The three great protectors could be said to be relying on their respective profound skills, in addition to the support of the array. The three of them each stood in a position and made a move at the same time, gathering that burst of profound energy. In an instant, he gathered the dark force together. A golden light formed in the sky, and in an instant, countless treasures fell from the golden light. Ji swung the Kuan Peng greatsword. The powerful force of the greatsword kept knocking down the artifacts in the air, causing them to fall to the ground one after another. A disdainful smile appeared on the faces of the three elders at the same time. That Xian sword quickly fell down, making clanking sounds. Ji suddenly stopped moving and took a step forward. Her feet stepped on the ground, and suddenly a bright light shone. The ground on both sides suddenly rose steadily, like an umbrella blocking Jiyu's head. Following this scene, the three elders revealed a look of disbelief. The head of the Tianese sect waved his hand. Suddenly, the world seemed to tremble. Everyone looked down the mountain. The seven-colored heavenly snake was flying in the air. It was holding a treasure in its hand, and it waved it heavily in the direction of the Tianese sect. Who are you? A profound beast? Impossible. It's impossible for a profound beast to be so powerful. Who would have thought that an inconspicuous disciple could mobilize a profound beast from the profound beast forest in the southern region? The other young miss of the Jin family also appeared at the same time with a profound beast from the other three regions. The two women ordered their profound beasts to charge into the crowd at the same time. Those profound beasts crazily crowded together. Every single one of the Xian beasts let out a roar. After they rushed into the crowd, they slammed into everyone. They spat out blood and fell to the ground. The remaining few people flew up. A profound lion couldn't care less and directly slammed into a seventh-layer human profound realm expert. Even though it couldn't kill this expert, he still fell to the ground. The remaining profound beasts crazily ran forward and stepped on his body. A seventh-layer human profound realm expert actually died under the feet of so many profound beasts. This way of dying was the most sullen death of a human profound realm expert in the history of the continent. A faint smile appeared on Jiyu's face. The two leaders of the Xian beasts both smiled at Jiyu. Are you still not going to make a move? The head of the Tianese sect suddenly looked behind him and roared. Chapter 770. At this moment, thunder rumbled in the sky. The other 8 great celestial gates had been observing from nearby. When they appeared at this moment, the remaining people instantly disappeared from their original positions. Jiyu said faintly, "Today, are you going to stand behind them?" The Ninine Sect's Yellow Spring Earth Profound Realm expert walked out. He said faintly, "Kid, don't be angry. We're doing this for the sake of the world." Jiyu's body flashed and pounced forward. In the blink of an eye, a few people surrounded them. In the blink of an eye, they spat out a mouthful of blood. They fell to the ground. Old Man Huang Quan had never expected that such a young lad would have 5 types of elements on him. Not only that, he was also an expert of the 3rd level of the Earth Profound Realm. This was equivalent to stacking 3 levels of profound energy. No one dared to underestimate such a terrifying strength. They coldly snorted and said, "It seems that these 2 women have a great connection with that brat. It's better to quickly capture them." The leaders of the other celestial sects of wonders also agreed with this statement. "Let's give it a try. Feng Wanyun. Why is he here?" Feng Wanyun, ranked 7th in the 10 great sects. Who isn't afraid of him? Not to mention his own strength. He's already at level 8 Earth Profound Realm. In the blink of an eye, a gust of wind blew past. Feng Wanyun was already standing opposite of the 7-colored heavenly snake. "Little snake, I advise you to leave now. You might be able to keep your life. Cut the crap. Are you going to fight or not?" The 7-colored heavenly snake did not have such a good temper. In this world, only Ji was worthy of her attention. Suddenly, the sky was filled with green, poisonous fog. The poisonous fog seemed to be going into everyone's heart and lungs. Many human profound realm experts vomited blood after inhaling the seven-colored heavenly snake's poisonous fog. They fell into a pool of blood. What a vicious, profound skill. Even Feng Wanyin could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. However, this was nothing to him. Violent gale, mystic sword technique. All of a sudden, there was no wind in the surroundings. However, in the instant that the windswept clouds swung out the treasure weapon, it was as if a violent gale had erupted between heaven and earth. Even the seven-colored heavenly snake had to take 2 steps back. Old man Huang Quan, who was ranked 7th, chuckled. It seems like Feng Wanyin is serious. This old man has no choice but to take action. Leave the Jin family to this old man. Jin Xiaoyun originally had the phoenix true body, but Old Man Yellow Springs did not know this. He slapped the ground with both hands, and suddenly countless skulls stood up. They seemed to carry boundless resentment as they swept towards Jin Xiaoyun. Jin Xiaoyun, on the other hand, was not afraid. He waved his hands. A sharp cry came from the sky. Golden Phoenix possession. A phoenix flew out of the sky and landed on Jin Xiaoyun's body. Immediately, her body seemed to have turned into a raging inferno. The flames spread out in all directions. Looking at the endless fire, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Both of his hands suddenly swung forward. A terrifying dark force gathered in the air. At this moment, the raging inferno started to fall rapidly. Bang, bang, bang. 3 more explosions resounded. Jin Xiaoyun suddenly flashed to the side and vanished on the spot. In the blink of an eye, he appeared behind Old Man Yellow Springs. Old Man Yellow Springs instantly had a bad feeling. He'd been using the most insidious dark force in the world, but in an instant, the birds were flying towards him. In the blink of an eye, the birds gathered in the air and crashed down heavily. They merged into Old Man Yellow Springs. How could Old Man Yellow Springs endure the purest flames in the world? He let out a shrill cry and immediately severed one of his arms to escape. But even then, his combat strength had been greatly reduced. The remaining 6 great sects felt that it wasn't appropriate to continue watching. Even though they really wanted their opponents to perish here, they couldn't just watch such a scene occur, because balance was an extremely important existence on profounder continent. Xiao Changsheng, what do you think we should do? As the leader of the 10 great sects, the sect masters of the other 5 great sects asked at the same time. Xiao Changsheng spoke leisurely. The source of all of this is that kid. The 5 of you will assist Sect Master Tianyi. You must kill that kid. The rest of us are no longer a threat. As soon as he finished speaking, the others flew over swiftly and formed an encirclement around Ji. The pressure on the sect master of the Tianyi sect was instantly reduced greatly. He smiled arrogantly and said, Ji, you've disregarded the rules of my Tianyi sect. You'll definitely die here today. Chapter 771. The 6 great masters joined forces to fight against Ji. Ji flew up, covered his palms with Xian energy, and slapped them on the ground. Boom! A loud sound was heard. A beam of Xian energy spread out in all directions at this moment. What a powerful Xian energy! This Xian energy, this is the first time I've personally felt it. An Earth Profound Realm expert actually has such a powerful strength. Let's join forces to suppress his Xian energy. My God, this is really too crazy. They roared one after another. The remaining few people flew up and landed on the ground. They raised their heads at the same time and saw Ji's ghostly figure approaching from afar, forcing them to come forward. They were so shocked that their mouths were wide open. How can this kid be so fast? He's simply a monster. After shouting these words, Ji was already in front of the North Sea School's master, a dignified expert of the 9th layer of the Earth Profound Realm. When facing Ji, actually felt a trace of fear in his heart. What should be paid special attention to was that the close here was not a normal close. It meant that after reaching the 9th layer of the Earth Profound Realm, there would be 4 major realms, namely the initial stage, the intermediate stage, the advanced stage, and the peak stage. After saying this, he raised his head and set his eyes on Jiyu. In the blink of an eye, the two people beside him flew to the back of the North Sea School's master, wanting to pull him back. But what they didn't expect was that Jiyu actually had a trace of a smile on the corner of her mouth. There was a trace of evil in this smile. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. In the blink of an eye, the person on top of him flew up and arrived in front of Jiyu in an instant. Jiyu abruptly turned around and swung his sword. Jiyu directly stabbed that sword into his dantian. After being stabbed by this sword, his dantian exploded. At the beginning, the rotating dantian exploded in the blink of an eye. Boom! Another loud noise was heard. The profound energy in their dantian flooded their entire bodies, causing them to spit out a mouthful of blood. The leader of the North Sea School was sent flying. They slammed into the wall and then slowly collapsed. The rest of the people suddenly raised their heads and locked their eyes on Jiyu. Jiyu said calmly, "The rest of you, go ahead." The 5 of them simultaneously retreated. He suddenly raised his head and locked his gaze on Jiyu. At the same time, each of them used their own earth profound realm, profound strength, and gradually suppressed her. In the blink of an eye, Jiyu raised her hand and swung her sword forward. At this moment, the ball of Xian energy collided with the thick fog, and the thick fog slowly dispersed. Ji said calmly, "The rest of you, come up." How could the leader of the Sky Sea School tolerate this? He shouted, "Jiyu, go to hell." After shouting this, a ball of thick fog slowly appeared behind him and floated forward. He slapped his chest. After slapping his chest, he flew forward like a rocket and hit the people around him. At this moment, they were all sent flying. One by one, they fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. In front of Jiyu, they were nothing. But in front of Jiyu, they were nothing. In an instant, they flew forward and hit Jiyu. His mind was still filled with thoughts of how to send Jiyu flying and then kill her on the spot so that he could attract everyone's attention. They flew in front of Jiyu. Jiyu suddenly punched his dantian and then used a Xian skill. In the blink of an eye, Jiyu flew behind the leader of the Sky Sea School and punched his back heavily. A loud cracking sound came from the back of his head. "Go to hell." After shouting these words, Jiyu suddenly turned around and the two of them bumped their fists together at the same time. Boom! Another loud sound was heard. Although the leader of the Sky Sea School had decent Xian energy, he couldn't withstand such a heavy blow. After being hit by this blow, he sucked in a breath of cold air. Jiyu flew up, and the people around her flew up as well. They came to Jiyu's side, and the rest of the people surrounded her. Jiyu swung dozens of punches again. Boom! 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 3 loud sounds were heard, and the rest of the people flew to the ground. The people of the Sky Sea School were bleeding profusely. After seeing this, they flew up and charged towards Jiyu. Jiyu turned around and swung the Kuin Peng giant sword down. Chapter 772. No matter what, the sect leader of the Tian Hai sect felt that he would never be able to break out of this encirclement. Now, he actually felt a trace of fear in his heart. After taking a deep breath, the rest of the people flew in front of Jiyu. They turned around, and the rest of the people brought down their life treasures and swung them down. The huge Kuin Peng sword fell. At this moment, a ball of fire suddenly appeared on the huge Kuin Peng sword. He slashed down, and the fire instantly exploded. Several balls of fire flew from the direction of the huge sword. When they saw this, the treasure vessel fell to the ground. When the treasure vessel saw this, it flew up into the air, and the remaining people gradually surrounded Jiyu as they moved forward. The sect leader of the Tian Hai sect sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, the poisonous mist snake flew up. Just as it was about to reach Jiyu, Jiyu suddenly waved her hand, and the precious treasure fell to the ground. At this moment, the poisonous snakes started to spread the flames. The flames were burning. The flames followed the weapons and burned over. His body started to burn. The sect leader of the Tian Hai sect screamed as he felt a burning pain on his body. After shouting those words, the man fell to the ground. Jiyu landed on the ground and swung the precious weapon out. The man screamed as he slowly collapsed to the ground. The rest of the people were stunned. They didn't expect this kid to be so powerful. After seeing this scene, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. In the blink of an eye, Jiyu landed a kick on his body. After falling, Jiyu suddenly flew down, and the power of the weapons slashed down heavily. The sect leader of the Tianhai sect didn't expect Jiyu to have such a move. His body suddenly hurt. Then, he took a deep breath. After seeing this scene, he suddenly didn't know what to say. When the other 5 sect leaders saw their own people die so miserably, they gnashed their teeth and shouted, "Jiyu, I'll definitely kill you." After shouting this, the people next to him flew up and landed in front of Jiyu in an instant. Their gazes were fixed in front of Jiyu. Jiyu suddenly brandished her sword. Fist after fist came crashing down. The rest of the people were sent flying backwards. When they reappeared, they looked in the direction of the 7-colored heavenly snake. The 7-colored heavenly snake's opponent was the one who restrained her the most. However, the 7-colored heavenly snake did not show any fear. Old man Huang Quan's body flashed. In the blink of an eye, the 7-colored heavenly snake opened its mouth. At this moment, its long tongue spat out and swept up. He was enveloped by this Xian energy and was lifted into the air. The Yellow Spring old man snorted coldly. "Die, 10,000 withering bones." After shouting these words, the surrounding bone people flew up and charged toward Jiyu. Corpses piled up one after another. After falling, Jiyu looked forward. After seeing this scene, he turned around. In an instant, a power with endless Yin-Shi erupted in the direction of the 7-colored heavenly snake. However, at this moment, a raging fire erupted from Jin Xiaoyuan's body. At this moment, Jin Xiaoyuan fell to the ground. With a loud bang, the surrounding flames flew forward and burned his body. The Yellow Spring old man was slightly surprised. At this moment, the old man suddenly turned around, and the ball of fire burned on his fist. He took a deep breath. Jiyu said indifferently, "Kill." After shouting these words, they took a deep breath and arrived in front of them in the blink of an eye. At this moment, they gathered their fists and swung their fists. The 2 fists collided with each other. Right at that moment, the flames were repelled and burned his body. After seeing this scene, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, the remaining people came forward. When the 7-colored heavenly snake saw this, it waved its hand. Suddenly, countless small black snakes also flew forward at this moment. Those long snakes were gathering together and falling down. Looking at these long snakes, Jiyu instantly flew up and landed on the ground, stomping 1 foot on the ground. At this moment, the ground began to shake. Yellow Spring was sucking in at this moment. In the blink of an eye, he came in front of the 7-colored heavenly snake. The remaining people came forward. Jiyu suddenly turned around. At this moment, the precious weapon shook out. Yellow Spring was sent flying backward. With a flash of his body, Jiyu's sword landed on Old Man Huang Quan's body. At this moment, Old Man Huang Quan's head was cut off from his forehead. At this moment, a head rolled on the ground. Seeing this, Jiyu's figure flashed as he pulled the beauty into his arms. "You're here." Chapter 773. The 2 of them looked at each other. The 7-colored heavenly snake thought to himself, "This kid is getting more and more handsome. How did I end up with such a handsome man?" As he thought of this, he slapped the other party's buttocks. In pain, the 7-colored heavenly snake looked at Jiyu shyly. Everyone's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. The 7-colored heavenly snake, which could be said to be one of the most honorable races in the world, actually showed a hint of shyness in front of Jiyu. This world is too crazy. However, they did not know that there was something even crazier to come. Feng Wanyun saw that his brother, who had surrounded him, was gone. He could not help but feel a sense of pain in his heart. 7-colored heavenly snake. Even if you have great magical powers and are the descendant of that person, you will definitely die under my sword today. After roaring these words, his body flashed, and in the blink of an eye, he was in front of Jiyu. He slashed down heavily with his sword and saw this horrifying scene. Jiyu took a deep breath. They flew out, and Jiyu said indifferently, "Jiyu, back off first." He pushed the seven-colored heavenly snake behind him. At this moment, the Kuan Peng giant sword fell down and hit the ground. A ball of colorless dark force was ignited at this moment. At this moment, the dark force scattered in all directions and a loud boom was heard. The two of them retreated separately. The rest of the people surrounded them in the blink of an eye. They raised their hands and let the dark force fall. Jiyu disappeared in the blink of an eye. After a while, the dark force in his hand slammed down heavily. Boom! Jiyu snorted coldly. The cold snort from above was like a huge pressure that spread in all directions. The surrounding people immediately retreated. Before they even started fighting, there was already blood at the corner of their mouths. Jiyu flew forward. At this moment, the precious weapon came crashing down with a heavy blow. The surrounding profound energy instantly vibrated. Feng Zhuanyuan's sword had actually missed. This was something that he had never expected. In front of an Earth profound realm expert, that powerful pressure had actually turned into nothingness in an instant. Under this kind of pressure, there had never been anyone with a cultivation lower than his who had been able to avoid it. And this Jiyu was indeed the first one. When he saw this scene, he immediately retreated. His gaze was locked onto Jiyu, as though he would leave immediately if Jiyu did anything. But what he didn't expect was that Jiyu had already locked her eyes on him. Both of them were sword experts. The Kuan Peng sword's artifact spirit was so powerful. At this moment, the Kuan Peng sword shrieked, and a huge Kuan Peng turned into the sharpest arrowhead. Boom! Another loud crash was heard. He landed on the ground. After taking a deep breath, Feng Zhuanyuan's hands moved like the wind. At this moment, the precious weapon started to dance rapidly. The sword moves of those profound swords turned into wind blades at this moment. These wind blades were very different from the wind blades that Jiyu had used previously. With a roar, the wind blades that were spiraling in the air turned around and directly swept over, colliding with Jiyu. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His body went soft and slowly fell to the ground. After seeing this scene, the person beside him flew forward and grabbed towards Jiyu with both hands. He actually wanted to make use of the gap between the profound skills. He wanted to force Jiyu to give up the precious weapon. But who was Jiyu? In this world, there was nothing that he didn't dare to do. However, Jiyu didn't let go of his hand. Instead, he flung the precious weapon away. The precious weapon instantly flew backwards. At this moment, the wind blades turned around and saw this scene. They landed in front of Jiyu. Jiyu suddenly turned his head and clapped his hands heavily. After the slap landed, the two profound energies collided heavily together. After seeing this scene, Jiyu's body flashed and disappeared from the spot. Jiyu waved the precious weapon and chopped down the Kuan Peng sword at this moment. Two loud clangs were heard. In the blink of an eye, Jiyu landed on the spot. At the same time, he released his gaze. He locked his profound energy onto the other party's body. At this moment, a huge pressure came crashing down. Seeing this huge amount of profound energies, Feng Zhuanyuan didn't have any other choice. Right now, in front of him, it was a matter of life and death. Brother Feng, let me help you. Even though the Tianyi sect leader had a life and death feud with the other sect leaders, in front of Jiyu, they could instantly turn into an iron fist. Because Jiyu's strength was really too terrifying. Chapter 774. In the blink of an eye, their figures flashed and landed in front of Jiyu. With a heavy swing of their xianqi, the two xianqi collided with one another. At this moment, the terrifying xianqi was sent flying backward. At this moment, the two xianqi collided. Jiyu's figure flashed and disappeared from her original spot. The Tianyi sect leader was sent flying backward. Seeing this scene, Jiyu immediately shouted, "Be careful. Kid, I don't need you to remind me. With this move, I'll destroy your Dantian." After shouting these words, the Xian-Chi in his hand gathered in his fist. At this moment, when the Tianyi sect leader saw how ferocious this punch was, he was slightly stunned. Then, he quickly retreated. Another punch was thrown. After seeing this, Jiyu's lips curled into a smile. At this moment, the treasure artifact landed heavily. Boom! What the Tianyi sect leader expected didn't happen. He rubbed his eyes, not knowing what had happened. It turned out that Jiyu's punch had dodged him and directly found Feng Zhuanyin's direction. Jiyu picked up the treasure artifact in front of her. At this moment, Jiyu's figure flashed and disappeared from her original spot. After a moment, Jiyu suddenly dropped the treasure artifact. At this moment, the two Xian-Chi collided. The remaining people quickly flew backward. They locked their gazes on Jiyu. Jiyu said calmly, "Hee, from today onwards, you're not here anymore." Feng Zhuanyin's eyes widened. In the blink of an eye, the Kuan Peng giant sword was stabbed into his body. At this moment, blood was dripping down continuously. A look of horror appeared in his eyes. He locked his gaze on Jiyu. Jiyu's figure suddenly flashed, and he disappeared from where he stood. At the same time, he returned to the battle between the 5 great sect leaders. At this moment, a long roar sounded out in the air. A massive bone dragon slowly approached from the distance with a group of dragons with terrifying auras. The head of the Tianyi school looked at the group of bone dragons in shock. It was at this moment that the bone dragon in the lead also circled down. They turned into a huge beam of light and fell heavily onto the ground. Another loud boom was heard. They took a deep breath. In the blink of an eye, they were already in front of Jiyu. Jiyu suddenly took a step back and raised her hands. At this moment, that ball of dark force gathered in his hands. He slapped the ground with one hand, and at this moment, his profound energy gathered violently on the ground. One after another, profound pillars soared into the sky and gathered everything in the surroundings. At this moment, the profound energy light pillar also gathered together and transformed into a long dragon. At this moment, the long dragon fell down. It let out a loud roar and immediately charged forward. Xiao Gu. Jiyu glanced in Xiao Gu's direction. Xiao Gu had also transformed into a human. In the blink of an eye, it came in front of her. She said indifferently, "Kill." After roaring the word "kill," the person next to her stepped forward. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Gu stretched out his hand. Profound skill, heaven and earth bind. She looked out coldly. That person instantly froze. The person who was fixed in place was instantly horrified. He said indifferently, "Be careful." After shouting these words, the person next to him turned around. In the blink of an eye, she gradually walked forward. She said indifferently, "How dare you?" After saying this, she clenched her hands into fists. The person in the heaven and earth bind took a deep breath. The remaining people turned around and thought to themselves, "Who exactly is this little girl? She actually has such powerful dark force." She took a deep breath and clenched her fists. In the end, that person couldn't withstand the might of the heaven and earth bind. After it was pressed down, it exploded. He turned into a dance of blood. At this moment, blood spread in all directions. Smelling the scent of blood, the remaining leaders all sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, 4th Elder suddenly turned his head, wanting to leave this place. But Jin Yuan had already appeared in front of him. "Little girl, get out of my way." At this moment, a ball of raging fire flew out. That ball of raging fire flew forward. The 4th Elder's heart was immediately filled with shock, and he slapped his palms forward with both hands. Even if you're a Xian beast and above the 10th level, you're still going to be at a disadvantage when facing my powerful Xian energy, right? When he thought of this, he turned his head around. At this moment, that little girl's ball of fire had already arrived in front of him. The ball of fire burned his body. No matter how he swung his arms, he couldn't get rid of this ball of fire. His heart was filled with horror. The ball of fire gradually burned his body. Chapter 775. Jiyu suddenly flashed and disappeared on the spot. Beads of sweat kept falling from the forehead of the head of the Tiani sect. Damn it, I actually let the fourth elder escape. Anyway, I can't escape anymore. He suddenly made up his mind and turned around. As if he had gone crazy, he roared at Jiyu. Jiyu, die. He made up his mind that he would let the fourth elder and the others escape no matter what. After making up his mind, he flashed and disappeared on the spot. After a while, he reappeared in the air, surrounded by a cloud of black gas. Suddenly, dozens of black arrows fell from the sky. Jiyu watched as the long arrows fell from the sky, and a smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. The dozens of long arrows suddenly fell from the sky. Jiyu raised her head and looked forward. She closed her eyes. In an instant, she dashed forward, turned around, and suddenly stabbed her sword down. Then, she swam to the side. Seeing this guy jumping up and down like a slimy fish, the head of the Tiani sect couldn't help but feel annoyed. Jiyu, you cunning fish. Watch how I catch you. He shouted angrily. In the blink of an eye, the other three women fixed their eyes on him at the same time. They had a bad feeling about this. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared on the spot. After a while, he suddenly turned around with the precious weapon in his hand and heavily chopped down the precious weapon. Jiyu shouted at the three women at the same time, "Don't come over." The three women stopped at the same time. Seeing this, Jiyu turned into a beam of white light and penetrated their bodies. The head of the Tiani sect came over. He opened his mouth wide in surprise. His eyes were fixed on Jiyu, and the Xian Qi in his body was pushed to the extreme. After Jiyu used the 3,000 clouds movement consecutively, he clearly sensed where Jiyu was. He looked in that direction. In the blink of an eye, that gaze was like a sharp sword piercing through. It was fixed on the other party. Boom! Another loud sound was heard, and the Xian Qi in the air shook violently. In the blink of an eye, they flew out. Jiyu was floating in the air. The head of the Tiani sect looked at Jiyu in surprise. What? Aren't you in the profound world realm? Wasn't it said that only people in the profound world realm could fly in this world? How could such a terrifying scene happen? She was just a moment ago, she was in the profound world realm. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. His heart started to beat faster, but it was too late. In the blink of an eye, Jiyu turned around and flew out of the mountain area. Jiyu raised the precious weapon in her hand and pierced it toward his heart. His heart started to beat rapidly. Suddenly, he felt a huge pressure. Suddenly, at this moment, his heart exploded. Ah! The head of the Tiani school let out a miserable cry and exploded. Pieces of flesh fell to the ground at this moment. Jiyu walked forward. He said indifferently, I didn't expect that the Tiani sect would get involved in this matter and get themselves involved. The seven-colored heavenly snake smiled. 2 sect masters got involved. The remaining leaders of the various sects also took advantage of the opportunity, just now, to follow and leave Grade Tool sect. Jiyu suddenly had a feeling of suspicion in his heart. He said faintly, in that case, you guys pay attention. The remaining people looked at each other, waiting for his last sentence. Jiyu said indifferently, get ready. We'll go to the Evolution Temple personally. But aren't we courting death if we go now? Jiyu smiled faintly. It's fine. All the empires and sects in the 4 regions will participate. After saying this, Jiyu put the Kuan Peng giant sword into the scabbard on her back. They all walked outside. A gust of demonic wind blew wildly at this moment. It was like a sharp blade, constantly blowing in all directions. In the blink of an eye, their bodies flashed and they disappeared. The remaining people looked at each other and walked out. Rows of soldiers stepped forward one after another, each holding a prized artifact in their hands. They glanced at each other and walked over. Countless experts gathered and walked toward the city of evolution. Suddenly, a strong wind blew. Dozens of experts of the profound realm flew out from inside. A young general couldn't hold back. He picked up the precious weapon beside him and charged toward the gate. They stood outside the gate and picked up the precious weapon. Then, they slashed at the group of people. Chapter 776. At this time, The weapons in the hands of the soldiers behind also gathered together and fused into their weapons. They believed that with their advantage in numbers, they could completely take them down. With this strong belief, they raised the treasures in their hands. A heavy sword was swung down, and a huge amount of dark force gathered in the treasure weapon in his hand. Just as the sword was about to strike down, a huge amount of energy erupted with a bang at this moment. The young general was sent flying, and his more than 10,000 subordinates were also annihilated at this time. Seeing this terrifying scene, the remaining people looked at each other and took a step forward. The Xian energy in their hands was quickly gathering. Another sword slammed into the ground. Boom! Another loud sound was heard. The Xian energy of dozens of human profound experts gathered together. This Xian energy was not to be underestimated. A loud bang was heard. At this moment, the Xian energy gathered into the shape of a ferocious beast. The ferocious beast roared in Ji Yu's direction and jumped out at this moment. With a roar, it set its eyes on Ji Yu. Ji Yu's figure flashed and disappeared from his original spot. He brandished his life treasure, and with a loud bang, the two Xian energies collided with each other. At this time, the thick fog suddenly dissipated slowly. Ji Yu's body appeared, and the Kuan Peng giant sword in his hand was suddenly thrown out. The formation of dozens of human profound experts was unexpectedly not a match for this sword. They all spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body was sent flying, crashing into the mountain gate. The remaining thousands of soldiers and horses, under Ji Yu's roar, ran up the mountain one after another. Countless people fell in a pool of blood, but the subordinates of the fourth elder seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. They had the guts to spit out a mouthful of blood. Their bodies fell to the ground. Ji Yu led the people of the Great Tool sect to the front of the evolving temple. They slowly walked out one by one. The fourth elder looked in the direction of Ji Yu, and he suddenly laughed. Ji Yu, do you know that every sect has its own Xian beast guarding the gate? He took a deep breath and placed his hands on the ground. Suddenly, the earth started to shake. A ferocious beast suddenly raised its head and roared at the sky. That powerful Xian energy also suddenly gathered at this time. Fourth elder, this is our Xian beast. You actually dare to touch it. Many disciples were shocked. This fourth elder was too bold. If there was a problem with the Xian beast guarding the gate, the whole person would be swallowed up. Ji Yu's body disappeared. In the blink of an eye, the group of injured human profound experts. The people behind him, one after another, laughed. For so many years, they had never fought such a painful battle. They flew forward and reaped the lives of human profound experts one after another. The rest of the people flew to the ground and turned around. Ji Yu said indifferently, "We will take back the evolving temple." When the three Sanuses saw Ji Yu coming, the corners of Ji Yu's mouth revealed a faint smile. "What? You want to stop me too?" When Li Sijiao saw this, she knew that Ji Yu still had two conditions in her hands. She could only open a path. Seeing that even the Saints took the initiative to open a path, the remaining two people looked at each other and retreated at the same time. Ji Yu walked forward one after another. At this time, a treasure flew out from the evolving temple and landed in front of Ji Yu. Ji Yu's body flashed and landed on the treasure. "Come out, fourth elder." The fourth elder and the remaining four sect masters flew out at the same time. "Old friends, we haven't seen each other for a long time. I didn't expect that we would have to work together this time." The rest of the people also laughed and stood together. At this time, the Xianqi under their bodies merged into the treasure. The Xianqi in the treasure gathered together at this time. His figure flashed, and in the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Ji Yu. Ji Yu abruptly turned around, and the precious artifact was swung down heavily at this moment. At this moment, the two profound energies collided heavily against each other. The six people separated at the same time. Ji Yu's clothes didn't change, but the rest of the people looked at each other and jumped out at the same time. The Xianqi in their hands suddenly swung down at this time. After witnessing this scene, the two profound energies collided heavily together. The two people disappeared at the same time. Ji said indifferently, "Be careful." The people behind her nodded one after another. The two people in front of her looked at each other, and Ji said indifferently, "The five of you can come together." Chapter 777. The four sect masters and fourth elder snorted coldly at the same time. "Ji, brat, how dare you be so arrogant? Let me have a taste of your skills today." Mystical skill, 10,000 mystical beasts. At this moment, after this roar, the remaining mystical beasts jumped over at the same time. After roaring, they looked in Jiu's direction in the blink of an eye. At this moment, more than 50 mystical beasts quickly gathered together and gradually formed a large group of mystical beasts. They roared angrily and came out. They directly raised their heads and opened their mouths wide to bite down. After seeing this, Jiu flew up and stretched out her hands at the same time. At this moment, two waves of mystical strength came forward to grab the mystical beasts. Finally, the mystical strength was suppressed. The two of them flew continuously in the air. After retreating, Jiu suddenly punched the mystical beast body. The Xian beast let out a roar and fell to the ground at this moment. Jiu pulled out the Kuan Peng giant sword and stabbed it down heavily. When the mystical beast was stabbed by the precious weapon, the other four sect masters did not remain idle and raised the precious weapons in their hands at the same time. 5 rays of silver light flashed forward at the same time. Jiu suddenly disappeared from her original spot. A moment later, she flew forward and turned her body. That treasure had gathered a powerful dark force, and under that heavy blow, Jiu's body trembled. At the same time, it spat out blood. At this moment, 2 more people landed in the surroundings. The 7-colored heavenly snake and Xiao Gu. Jin Yuan only watched from afar and commanded the mystical beasts under him to pull the disciples in front of him down. After seeing this scene, Fourth Elder's face turned pale. Fourth Elder's heart was like dead ashes. He had seen these 2 people's monstrous, profound strength at the artifact grade sect. Not to mention, Jiu's profound strength was enough to help them break through. At this thought, he clenched his fists tightly. The 2 waves of mystical strength collided. Suddenly, the 7-colored heavenly snake moved. Its body was like a long, soft snake. Countless sharp fangs fell down at this moment. The liquid fell down like a heavy rain. They raised their hands at the same time. At this moment, the 2 profound energies collided with the fangs. The rest of the people suddenly rushed forward. Jiu calmly asked, "Profound skill, raging inferno." After Ho Chue said those words, his dark force instantly reached its peak. At this moment, that dark force flew in another direction and danced forward. A loud boom was heard. The surrounding blazing flames flew in all directions and engulfed everything in front of them in an instant. Jiu retreated in a flash. He brandished his treasured weapon, which then fell heavily to the ground. At this moment, the prized artifact's raging flames danced in all directions. At this moment, the raging flames began to devour the surrounding people. At this moment, his body flashed and disappeared from the ground. Jiu flew forward with the prized artifact. The 4 great sect masters withdrew at the same time and brandished the prized artifact in Jiu's direction. After seeing the prized artifact, Jiu's figure flashed and disappeared from the ground. He appeared not far away. The 4th elder knew that he was going to be in big trouble, so he raised his head and shouted to the sky, "If you don't come out, we're all done for." At this moment, a thunderous roar resounded in the sky. "You deserve to die." 4th elder suddenly laughed. "That's right, I deserve to die. But without me, your plan can't be completed." At this moment, a black figure appeared on the roof and looked in the direction of Jiu. Jiu calmly asked, "Who is he?" "Jiu, do you really not remember me?" At this moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on the black-clothed man. The black-clothed man took off the hood of his robe and locked his eyes on Jiu. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the spot. A moment later, the prized artifact in his hand suddenly chopped down. At this moment, the prized artifact pierced through the void. Immediately after, The prized artifact fell heavily and hit the ground. Boom! Another loud explosion sounded. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared from the spot. A moment later, Jiyu turned around. He pulled the prized artifact out of his body and suddenly jumped out, whipping the prized artifact towards the other party's body. Fourth Elder never expected that after the sect master of the Divine Evolution Temple came out, the remaining people would jump forward and stand in the middle of the ground. At this moment, they locked their eyes on Jiyu. It was at this moment that the treasured item shone brightly and then slammed into the ground. The sect leader's gaze locked onto Jiyu, and an incredible pressure began to emanate from him. It was at this moment that Jiyu stepped forward and felt the pressure. Chapter 778. Jiyu suddenly disappeared from his original spot. He gathered his profound energy in the treasure artifact, and at this moment, the raging flames suddenly blasted out in all directions. The raging flames instantly collided in all directions. At this moment, they stood up, landing behind him. He slowly looked in the direction of Jiyu. After Jiyu suddenly killed the fourth elder, he also released this pressure back. At this moment, Jiyu's profound energy also suddenly surged. Everyone could clearly sense that Jiyu's strength had reached the point of breaking through. At this moment, that profound energy broke through to the horizon. A cry of awe was heard. Jiyu's body was filled with profound energy, and he suddenly punched the ground. Fourth level of the Earth Profound Realm. At this moment, the Sky Splitter started to operate crazily. Fifth level of the Earth Profound Realm. Sixth level of the Earth Profound Realm. Seventh level. Eighth level. 9 levels front, middle, and back. Jiyu instantly arrived at the late stage of the Earth Profound Realm. Everyone was so shocked that their jaws dropped. Jiyu's profound energy actually had 5 levels of elemental energy. In other words, Jiyu alone was equivalent to 5 people at the peak of the 9th level of the Earth Profound Realm. This kind of strength was really too shocking. Jiyu roared. That profound energy at this moment gathered in the sky. The water energy at this moment gathered like a long dragon. It slowly descended, fluttered forward, and roared out. The water dragon extended its claws forward. At this moment, the claws slowly fell down. The two forces also collided at this moment. Jiyu flew up and merged with that water dragon. At this moment, he fell down. The powerful force made this sect master, who was also at the peak of the Earth Profound Realm, retreat at the same time. He panted heavily and looked in the direction of Jiyu. The two of them looked at each other. He knew exactly how powerful the other party was. With a flash of his body, he suddenly disappeared from his original spot. Jiyu took 2 steps forward. At this time, the remaining people flew forward. Jiyu snorted disdainfully. He kicked a human Profound Realm disciple. For example, in a battle between the peak of the Earth Profound Realm, the human Profound Realm would not have any ability to interfere. Although in the eyes of ordinary people, the human Profound Realm was as powerful as a god. Jiyu and the sect leader's fists collided. The sect leader abruptly stopped his attack. Maybe you can resurrect the goddess. Let me tell you, her statue is with the protector of the union of 10,000 immortals. You can ask him for it yourself. After saying that, the head of the evolving divine temple instantly disappeared from his original spot. It was as if he had never appeared before. When everyone sensed this scene, they sucked in a deep breath. Jiyu said faintly, "You stay outside." He walked step by step into the main hall. The old man turned around and looked in the direction of Jiyu with a smile. "You're back. I don't know why you want to use me." After hearing Jiyu's words, he laughed out loud. This old man said that this old man can't interfere in the affairs of your province. But after so many years, I have feelings for you. Do you know what the evolving divine temple did to resurrect the goddess? Jiyu cupped his hands. This junior naturally knows, but senior doesn't want the queen to be resurrected, right? He snorted. It's not that I can't, but the people behind me won't allow it. After saying this, Jiyu suddenly locked his eyes on the old man. The old man gave a strange, "Oh," and looked at Jiyu's body from head to toe. How you have such powerful Xianqi? Jiyu smiled faintly. Old mister, why don't we be frank? The old man nodded and opened his eyes. At this moment, he locked his eyes on Jiyu. In the blink of an eye, his body flashed, and he appeared in front of Jiyu. His hands were like the wind, constantly swinging his fists. Boom, boom, boom. Another 3 loud sounds rang out, and Jiyu's body suddenly disappeared from the spot. In the blink of an eye, Jiyu appeared behind the old man. The old man laughed. You want to get the last trace of the queen's divine soul from this old man? Let's see how capable you are. At the same time, his figure disappeared. It was actually the 3,000 clouds movement. Jiyu fixed her eyes on him. Don't be surprised. This move was left behind by your ancestors. In our province, almost everyone knows this move. After his smile fell, he suddenly turned around and flew to Jiyu in the blink of an eye. But Jiyu disappeared at the same time. Chapter 779. Jiyu looked at the other party's figure and used the 3,000 clouds movement. In the blink of an eye, he landed on the ground. His hands formed the shape of an eagle's claws and grabbed towards Jiyu. Jiyu turned around, and the 2 profound energies clashed together at this moment. Boom! Another loud sound was heard, and the 2 of them retreated. Raging Inferno. A ball of raging fire was released from the Kuan Peng treasure. At this moment, the raging fire burned the old man's body. The old man snorted coldly and shook his arms. Immediately, the profound energy on the ground flew up. At this moment, the 2 balls of Xian energy gathered together. When the 2 balls of Xian energy gathered together, they directly flew down and exploded on the ground. The Xian energy slowly gathered together at this moment. The remaining 2 people gathered together and flew in front of Jiyu. They looked at each other, and in the blink of an eye, the old man flew in front of Jiyu. He clasped his hands together, and a ball of powerful Xian forces gathered. After slapping the ground, he disappeared from his original spot. Young friend, I hope to see you there in the future. After saying this, the old man's figure disappeared in an instant. A piece of paper fell to the ground at this moment. Jiyu picked up the piece of paper on the ground and held it in her hand. Jiyu immediately understood something. He walked to the back of the stone statue and punched it. At that moment, the door collapsed. Jiyu said indifferently, "Be careful." When the gate collapsed, he led the people beside him into the passageway. There was also a huge stone statue enshrined on the ground. However, the stone statue contained a huge amount of Xian forces. Gradually, the powerful Xian forces gathered together. After seeing this, Jiyu took a step forward. He placed his hand on the stone statue. Suddenly, a powerful Xian energy lit up. At this moment, the stone statue gradually released the first coming. At this moment, the stone statue gradually released the first coming. After seeing this, Jiyu raised her head. The Xian force enveloped Jiyu. At this moment, the 2 of them slowly walked out, and at the same time, the illusory remnant souls also appeared. At this moment, the stone statue shattered, and a soul that looked exactly like the remnant souls appeared. At this moment, they looked in Jiyu's direction. After seeing this scene, Jiyu smiled. However, when that figure appeared, she smiled and raised her head. Hee, you're finally here. At this moment, the Ice Queen said slowly, "Since you know that I'm here, why don't you come back quickly?" After hearing this, the remnant soul was slightly stunned and was about to fly back. At this moment, the Ice Queen also saw that her remnant soul didn't want to come back. She snorted. This remnant soul was the strongest one of the 5 remnant souls. At this moment, the remnant soul suddenly flew out and waved its hand. At this moment, the ball of Xian force flew out and danced. The 2 people raised their hands at the same time. At this moment, the 2 balls of Xian force collided. Jiyu raised her head and looked over. In the blink of an eye, Jiyu's figure flashed and suddenly disappeared from the spot. The powerful Xian force also separated from her palm. At this moment, the 2 balls of Xian force collided again. After a loud boom, His entire body flew out and slammed heavily into the wall. Ji spat out a mouthful of blood. The remaining people raised their heads and flew up. At this moment, the few people suddenly looked at each other. At this moment, Ji seemed to sense that there was a clap of thunder in the sky. The remnant soul seemed to be about to run out of the room. After seeing this scene, the remaining people suddenly raised their heads. Ji took a step forward, and the Queen of Ice and Frost suddenly split apart. Several people split apart. She flew over and landed on the ground. At this moment, she suddenly merged in his direction. At this moment, the two figures merged together. At this moment, bolts of lightning came crashing down. The lightning gathered together. The Queen of Ice and Frost suddenly screamed and whistled in the sky. The people of the 5 major domains looked up at the same time. Looking at the sky, gradually, the profound energy in the sky started to gather. At this moment, he disappeared in a flash and landed on the ground in the blink of an eye. The two people looked at each other. The Queen of Ice and Frost said indifferently, "When I break the array, you and I will break through the people of the other 13 prefectures." Originally, the Queen of Ice and Frost only wanted to protect the people of the 5 major domains. At this moment, the lightning struck down. At this moment, after the lightning gathered together, Ji stood up. Chapter 780. In the sky, everyone raised their heads. They only saw that the golden light formation floating in the sky was struck by the Queen of Ice and Frost's lightning power at this very moment. At this moment, the formation slowly scattered, and the power of the formation gathered together. It returned to its body. After the formation scattered, all the peak Earth Profound Realm experts raised their heads abruptly and looked at the sky. The Earth Profound Realm experts gathered together and flew into the sky. At this very moment, their dantian seemed to have gathered together from the sky, and the profound strength quickly merged into their bodies. That profound strength raised its head at this very moment. He flew up and laughed loudly. They sensed that the seal that had kept them at the peak of the Earth Profound Realm for so many years could finally be broken. This surging profound strength directly impacted their bodies. They flew up at the same time and landed on the ground. At this very moment, Ji opened his eyes. Ji's figure flashed and disappeared from where he stood. After a moment, that ball of profound strength gradually gathered together and merged into Ji's body. In the blink of an eye, Ji's body flashed and flew into the sky in the blink of an eye. At this very moment, his profound strength also broke apart. In the blink of an eye, Ji's profound strength gradually became a powerful existence. He suddenly raised his head, and at this very moment, a burst of profound strength came crashing down. Those two balls of profound strength also gathered together at this very moment. At this very moment, they looked at each other, and the profound strength in their hands also gathered together at this very moment. They formed a small person. The profound strength in Ji's body also increased, and he actually broke through to the sky profound realm in an instant. If he didn't deliberately suppress it, Ji would have already broken through to the 5th level of the human profound realm. However, because of the rapid growth, an endless sea of profound strength formed in his dantian. He waved his hand heavily. Suddenly, that sea of profound strength also gathered together at this very moment. It was as if a tsunami was surging forth. Everyone looked at this sea of profound strength, and one after another, they all became excited. They never expected that after breaking through to the human profound realm, it would be so powerful. At this very moment, several rays of profound light also came crashing down at this very moment. They floated in the void. The 3 guardians of the union of 10,000 immortals appeared in front of Ji. Ice Queen, it was you who separated the central province from this place 10,000 years ago. Are you going back on your words now? After hearing these words, the rest of the people gathered together and flew down. Their figures instantly split apart, and countless black shadows flew out in an instant. When they saw the numerous, illusory figures, the three Dharma protectors levitating in midair made their moves at the same time. They suddenly turned their heads and saw the shadowy figures picking up the magical items next to them. In the blink of an eye, they flew down. He shot towards Jiyu's direction at high speed. The Ice Queen snorted coldly. He raised both of his hands and slapped them down heavily. At this moment, the two phantoms slapped down. When they saw this scene, they were stunned. They turned around abruptly. The three guardians locked their eyes on Jiyu. The guardians suddenly turned around. Three golden threads of profound strength were colluding at this very moment, and those threads were gathering together at this very moment. They slapped them down heavily on the ground. Another loud sound was heard. Their bodies flashed, and they disappeared from where they were. Then they flew up. Seeing this scene, Jiyu suddenly turned around. The profound strength in her hands slapped out at this very moment. The two profound strengths gathered at this very moment and slapped at the first moment. The two balls of profound strength collided with each other, and they retreated separately. After seeing this scene, Jiyu said indifferently, "The three guardians have such a big temper." When they heard this, they snorted coldly at Jiyu. Jiyu said indifferently, "Could it be that the other 13 provinces don't welcome us?" Of course. After saying this, a man in a red robe suddenly flew down. "I am Fei Hong. Greetings to all of you." The peak of the human profound realm. Everyone exclaimed. He smiled slightly. "Everyone from the union of 10,000 immortals. Let me say it. In that case, let sect leader Fei Hong say it." "Haha, I'm the sect leader of the Heaven and Earth sect of the Heaven and Earth region. I am also the representative of the only sect in the Heaven and Earth region. Today, I am here for you to be a member of this continent. From today onwards, you have to hand over 700 billion profound stones and 50 million earth profound pills every month. Then you can live well." Jiyu asked indifferently, "May I ask if you are threatening me?" "Haha, this can be considered a threat, but I am more willing to call this the price I have to pay to protect you." Chapter 781. Jiyu coldly snorted and said to Fei Hong, "Which is you guys?" When he coldly snorted, in the blink of an eye, they flew up and landed behind Jiyu. When they saw this scene, their entire bodies flashed and arrived in front of Jiyu. "Immature brat, you don't know what's good for you." After the cold snort, the sound of heavenly thunder resounded, and the lightning struck down just like that. Jiyu instantly activated the 3,000 clouds movement and dodged to the side, dodging one of the lightning strikes. When the lightning struck the ground, Jiyu took out his artifact. In a flash, his entire body disappeared from his original position. In the blink of an eye, Jiyu suddenly chopped down with his sword. However, the remaining human profound realm and earth profound realm people weren't so lucky. When the heavenly lightning struck, they didn't even have time to react before the heavenly lightning struck their heads. With a blood-curdling scream, those two human profound realm experts were turned into dregs by the power of the lightning. Under this heavy attack, the earth profound realm experts started to pant one after another. It was obvious that they suffered heavy injuries. Jiyu's gaze locked onto their bodies. Jiyu indifferently said, "Is this your so-called protection? You were the one who spoke rudely to this sovereign first. Serves you right for this outcome." Within Fei Hong's words, there was disdain for all living things in the world. The power of lightning suddenly struck down. When he saw the lightning, he stretched out his hands and caught the lightning. It was as if he had caught the lightning in his hands in an instant. The lightning abruptly struck down at this moment, and another loud boom resounded. Holding the artifact formed by the lightning, he suddenly flew forward. After entering the sky profound realm, he was actually able to reach out and pick up the profound energy between heaven and earth and use it as his own artifact. This power was indeed very frightening. When Jiyu saw this, he disappeared from where he stood in a flash. A moment later, he reappeared behind Jiyu and abruptly struck down with the power of lightning. When he saw the power of the lightning strike down, he was stunned. At this moment, the explosive power of thunder and lightning flowed through Ji-Yu's body. Ji-Yu's dark force continued to surge. Instead, the dark force in his hand was also surging. He lifted his head with a smile on his face. Then, he struck out with his palm. At this moment, the surrounding mysterious energy went berserk and gradually merged with Ji-Yu's body. A faint smile appeared on Ji-Yu's face. He let out a cold snort. At this moment, the dark force suddenly flew out. The dark force suddenly fell, and the power of thunder and lightning struck the ground. Many of the experts on the ground were taken away. However, they didn't have any regrets. They only raised their heads. Suddenly, countless experts released their own Xian skills. Seeing the balls of Xian Qi dancing in the air, they raised their hands at the same time when they saw the powerful Xian Qi. They blocked all the dark force in front of them. At this moment, the dark force gathered together and then disappeared from their original positions. When they saw this scene, their bodies flashed. Chapter 782. In an instant, Ji-Yu's Xian energy slashed down heavily. Similarly, a powerful bolt of lightning was released from his hand. The two Xian energies clashed together at this moment. Boom! Another loud sound was heard. The two of them retreated separately. Fei Hong was a little surprised. He had clearly used an extremely strong Xian energy earlier. Why did it feel like all the Xian energy in the world was absorbed by him? Feeling surprised, he wanted to say something. At this moment, another bolt of lightning struck down. Seeing this scene, Ji-Yu suddenly turned around. At the same time, he swung the Kuan Peng sword in his hand forward. Another loud boom was heard. The two of them retreated separately. He floated in the air and looked out with burning eyes. After seeing this scene, that woman flew down and landed in front of Ji-Yu. Fei Hong grabbed out casually and caught two bolts of lightning in his hand. This time, he heavily smashed the Xian energy in Ji-Yu's direction. Ji-Yu snorted coldly and disappeared from the spot. After a moment, he floated in the air. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning gathered in Ji-Yu's hand. The two Xian energies clashed together. The two of them retreated separately. Ji-Yu had just entered the profound sky realm, but the difference between the two of them was too big. Ji-Yu said indifferently, "You won't be able to leave today." After hearing this, the two of them looked at each other. After seeing this scene, Fei Hong sneered, "You want to keep me here? You?" Ji-Yu suddenly raised his head. There was a trace of a smile on the corner of his mouth. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at both sides. At this moment, he grabbed. The wind was originally formless, but in Ji-Yu's hand, it turned into the shape of a sharp axe. Ji-Yu swung it down heavily. After the giant axe fell, a strong wind suddenly blew. That wind was like a bone-scraping knife, constantly whistling. After seeing this scene, the crowd was shocked. Fei Hong raised his head and stabbed forward with both hands. That surge of Xian energy pierced down. After the powerful collision, it was as though the entire world was at this moment, as though there were countless vicious wolves tearing at each other. At this moment, it was as if the world was about to shake. Ji-Yu suddenly turned his head. He picked up the wind treasure in front of him and stabbed forward. After seeing this scene, that Xian energy pierced through. The two Xian energies clashed together. Ji-Yu suddenly flew backward. He raised his head and said indifferently, "Give me your life." When Fei Hong sensed this strong Xian energy, he disappeared from his original spot and flew outside. When he sensed Ji-Yu's strong Xian energy, they collided. After the two Xian energy collided, he was sent flying backward. His entire body flew backward. Ji-Yu stood on the ground and raised his head. He looked forward and saw that Fei Hong was trying to escape without any regard for his life. At this moment, the sharp blade was continuously scraping him. There were more and more wounds on his body. Drops of blood were continuously dripping down at this moment. Fei Hong thought that the Queen of Ice had just recovered, and now there was another monstrous existence. Chapter 783. He didn't know how strong he would become in the future. He must destroy him as soon as he takes form. He must destroy him as soon as he takes form. The thought in his mind grew stronger and stronger. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared on the spot. He landed on the ground with a faint smile on his face. Ji-Yu's figure flashed, and he disappeared from where he stood. He said to the Queen of Ice and Frost, "I think they will come out later." After saying that, the rest of the people landed on the ground. The Queen of Ice and Frost also knew that since Ji-Yu revealed his strength today, the rest of the continents wouldn't just stand by and watch. After so many years, the continents had formed a unified strength. At first, they were still looking at each other, waiting to see if they could conquer the other 13 continents. They didn't have much strength. Ji-Yu took a step forward and said indifferently, "Everyone gather!" After shouting this, the rest of the people suddenly appeared in front of Ji-Yu. They walked towards Ji-Yu. The Queen of Ice and Frost said indifferently, "From today onwards, you will all belong to the Evolving Temple." Even the sect leader of the Grade Artifact Sect and the original Hall Master of the Evolving Divine Temple lowered their heads. If the fourth elder was still alive, he would definitely be angered to death. He never would have thought that all the things he had painstakingly accumulated for such a long time would become a wedding dress for Ji-Yu. Ji-Yu said indifferently, "Return to one." After shouting this, the rest of the people quickly gathered. In the blink of an eye, they all gathered together and looked up at the same time. "Greetings, Your Majesty." The Queen of Ice and Frost's beauty could be considered the best in the world. He looked up and looked at her. At this moment, the entire sky darkened. The power of lightning flashed continuously in the void. The clouds dissipated. Above the clouds, they looked up. The mighty figures of the 13 continents appeared in the sky. Suddenly, there was a whoosh. The remaining people of the 13 continents gradually surrounded them. They looked in Ji-Yu's direction and raised their hands. "Kill! Kill! Kill!" The officers of the 13 prefectures were all standing here. The rest of the people started to tremble. Such a powerful army would only make people feel intimidated. Ji-Yu took a step forward. At this time, he suddenly disappeared and floated in the void. He raised his hand and waved it forward. That valiant energy instantly enveloped the entire area as a massive amount of dark force appeared in the air. At this moment, countless bolts of lightning struck down, causing the surrounding people to scream. Suddenly, a loud sound came from the sky. "Ha ha ha ha, Ji! First level of the earth, profound realm dares to be so arrogant. I'm the governor of the North Sea State, Mu Yunfei. Die, brat." After shouting these words, it seemed as if the void was being pulled. Spatial power. Ji-Yu's eyes widened. He was fixed on the ground. He looked forward. At this moment, the rest of the people suddenly came to Ji-Yu. Ji-Yu suddenly raised the treasure in his hand. The power of the Kuan Peng suddenly flew out. After seeing the Kuan Peng, Mu Yunfei laughed loudly. Chapter 784. A mere Kuan Peng dares to be presumptuous in front of a giant mountain. Mu Yunfei waved his hand. In an instant, a majestic dark force was released. It was as if a giant mountain was pressing down on it. After sensing the enormous dark force, Ji-Yu's body flashed and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, she appeared in front of Mu Yunfei. The Kuan Peng was instantly suppressed to the point of suffocation. Under the collision of this profound energy, it actually disappeared with a loud bang. Everyone stood up. Ji looked out and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, she flew in front of Mu Yunfei. Suddenly, at this moment, Xin Shi was released in an instant. Boom! Another loud sound was heard. An enormous dark force was released in the sky. Ji suddenly raised her head and slapped her hands. At this moment, a mass of dark force gathered in front of her. Mu Yunfei cried out in alarm. Feeling the dark force gradually approaching him, he was stunned. In the blink of an eye, they appeared in front of Ji. At this moment, the two palms collided. Both of them fell at the same time. After seeing this, Ji said indifferently, "Is this all you have?" Mu Yunfei didn't expect that he couldn't kill her with his own strength. When he thought of this, a ball of anger suddenly appeared in his heart. "Brat, you're insulting me too much." After roaring this sentence, they suddenly fell and landed on the ground. Suddenly, a golden light appeared on their bodies and covered them from head to toe. Seeing the change in the sky, he suddenly flew out and landed in front of Jiyu. Then he slapped down heavily. The two dark forces collided at this moment. Mu Yunfei said indifferently, "Kill them all." Mu Yun State. There were countless experts in the state, and 13 of them were at the peak of the profound world realm. In the blink of an eye, they landed on the evolving temple. It should be known that the evolving temple was the most important existence in the central state. If the evolving temple fell, it meant that the prefecture was about to fall as well. "I'm the Ghost King, Han Che. I can command hundreds of ghosts in the world. Does anyone dare to come up and fight me?" After roaring these words, the sect leader of grade, Tool sect leaped forward. "I am Qing Feng from the lower grade artifact sect. Greetings to Senior Ghost King." "Ah, peak of the earth profound realm, Ghost King palm." The Ghost King roared angrily and slapped down heavily with his palm. The huge palm carried a powerful, profound energy. Boom! Another loud sound rang out. He spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated. Who would have thought that the Ghost King's palm would contain such an enormous amount of Xian energy? As the two palms struck down, a bright light suddenly burst forth. At this moment, the dark force slowly gathered together and reached the sky. At this moment, the two masses of dark force gathered together. Suddenly, the dense dark force gathered together and split apart. At this moment, the two Xian energies gathered together. The Xian energies directly soared into the sky. Another loud sound rang out. Abruptly, they retreated separately. After seeing this scene, they were stunned. Chapter 785. Qing Feng suddenly flew forward, and at this moment, the long robe suddenly fluttered, and countless sharp blades fell down at this moment. The Ghost King's palm energy had long contained boundless power. At this moment, those sharp blades suddenly shot forward. When he saw these sharp blades, he immediately panicked. His body flashed, and he turned around. Those sharp blades were like dancing eagles. They danced and danced in front of Miao Yi. He suddenly turned around and waved the precious weapon in his hand. At this moment, two waves of Xian Qi gathered together. That wave of Xian Qi fell down at this moment. A huge amount of power gathered on the old man's body, and that Xian Qi slowly fell down at this moment. He instantly turned around, and the precious weapon suddenly swung out. It arrived in front of Jiyu, and the two waves of Xian Qi collided heavily. Boom! Another loud sound rang out. The two people retreated separately, and they raised their heads. The Ghost King Han Che didn't expect that Jiyu would actually interfere in the battle between the two of them, and even deliberately thrust out her sword. He shouted, "Mu Yunfei, why aren't you pulling your people down?" At this moment, Mu Yunfei landed on the ground and raised the Xian Qi in front of him. The Xian Qi gathered in his hand and flew into his palm. At this moment, that ball of flame fell down. He didn't expect that Han Che actually had the power of the fire element. That ball of flame directly burned in everyone's direction. He suddenly raised his head. Qing Feng was only at the peak of the profound earth realm, and he could actually exchange hundreds of blows with someone in the profound sky realm. He could already be considered a true expert. After the two waves of Xian Qi collided, he flew out. He was suddenly sent flying. Jiyu's figure flashed and appeared behind him, catching him. After catching him, he looked at Yi Futian. His body flashed, and he appeared in front of Jiyu. Jiyu suddenly slapped out her palm, and a ball of flame actually appeared in his hand. That ball of flame fell at this moment, and the two waves of Xian Qi collided heavily. He suddenly pulled out his precious weapon, and with a flash, he appeared behind Jiyu. After the two waves of Xian Qi collided, Ji gathered the xianqi in her fingertips. Ji took advantage of his attack to suddenly appear behind his opponent. She slowly pointed her finger downwards, and the ball of flames fused into her finger right at that moment. The raging fire began to burn, completely igniting Han Che. A ball of raging fire suddenly appeared on Han Che's body, as if the raging fire was burning him. Han Che didn't expect that Jiyu Xianqi would be so overbearing. The Xianqi was released from his dantian and filled his entire body. After letting out a miserable shriek, his entire body fell to the ground. The raging fire gradually spread out in all directions. Jiyu's body flashed, and she disappeared. After a moment, the old man didn't expect that he would actually die in Jiyu's hands. The remaining people looked at each other. Mu Yunfei said indifferently, "Your sect master has been killed. From now on, you have to listen to my orders." The 13 profound Earth Realm experts were slightly stunned. Chapter 786. They didn't expect that there would be such a powerful force. Jiyu waved her hand, and the experts at the peak of the profound world realm in the evolving temple moved forward at the same time. Boom, boom, boom. 3 loud sounds were heard. Bolts of lightning fell down, and cracks appeared on the ground. Those 13 experts at the peak of the profound world realm were hit by this Xian energy. Blood immediately started to drip down slowly. Seeing this powerful Xian energy, they immediately took a step back. They abruptly took a step back. After seeing this, Jiyu said indifferently, "Back off." At this moment, the forces of the 5 major territories slowly gathered under the evolving temple. Suddenly, with a boom, that group of people flew down and landed on the ground. At this moment, they slowly opened their eyes. Ji was like a god. The power of the 5 elements each turned into a ball of light and floated in the air. With a wave of Jiyu's hand, the several balls of fire suddenly fell down at this moment. Boom! Boom! 3 loud sounds were heard again. A ball of fierce Xian energy exploded on the ground. A trace of vigilance appeared in the eyes of the people from the 13 provinces. Mu Yunfei said indifferently, "This kid is really too scary. Brothers, let's retreat first." After shouting these words, the rest of the people turned their heads and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Ji slowly took a few steps forward. In the blink of an eye, she landed on the ground. The 13 of them raised their heads and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Ji said faintly, "Stop right there." They glared angrily at Jiyu and roared at her. "How can there be no one left?" After hearing this, they looked at each other. Jiyu said indifferently, "Stop, move." The rest of the people looked at each other. Jiyu said indifferently, "They destroyed our ancestral temple. We must avenge this. Let them go today." After leaving, they looked at each other and stood up. Jiyu said indifferently, "Pass down my order. The sovereigns of the 5 territories will fight." Although Jiyu had unified the 5 territories, in the process, Jiyu had distributed the 5 thrones to the royals who supported Jiyu. 5 Xianyuan carriages slowly came forward. They got off the carriages. The king of the eastern region got off the carriage. They knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing. He said indifferently, "Your Majesty, don't go. If you go, won't you admit that the 5 territories belong to that former servant?" After hearing this, the king of the eastern region's heart suddenly beat. That's right. Who didn't want to be the ruler of the 5 territories? He suddenly thought of this, and his heart beat faster. The kings of the other 4 domains also arrived one after another. Their minds were all racing in their heads. Jin Xiaoyuan's arrival completely shattered their illusions. A beginner in the heavenly profound realm. The king of the eastern region trembled and slowly stood up. Jiyu said indifferently, "Come in." Hearing this thunderous voice, the sovereigns of the 5 territories all lowered their heads. Chapter 787. The wind continued to howl. The 5 of them followed the directions of the people on both sides and knelt on the ground one after another. They all looked in the direction of Jiyu. Jiyu said indifferently, "From today onwards, I am your king. Do you have any objections?" At this moment, they raised their heads. The rest of the people slowly gathered and surrounded Jiyu. At this moment, they fixed their gazes on Jiyu. The kings of the 5 regions raised their heads. He said indifferently, "From today onwards, the 5 regions will gather their soldiers under me." After hearing this, they looked at each other and stood up. Jiyu walked forward and knelt on the ground. They did not know what to say. The person beside them suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction of Jiyu. Jiyu's figure flashed, and he disappeared from where he stood. After a moment, Jiyu appeared in a flash. He took 2 steps forward and said indifferently, "Why? Do you have any other thoughts?" After hearing this, they looked at each other and stood up. In a flash, they quickly surrounded Jiyu. Then, they landed on the ground. The kings of the West region and North region stood up and roared at Jiyu. He roared at Jiyu, "The world is still in our hands. Jiyu, you have betrayed your oath. You forgot that you said you would share the world with us." Suddenly, the dark force around the king of the West region surged. A strong surge of dark force rushed between heaven and earth. He suddenly flew up and landed in front of Jiyu. The dark force that had gathered in his hand suddenly fell down. That ball of dark force fell down, causing everyone to look at each other. Jiyu flew up and landed not far away after a few leaps. They raised their heads at the same time. In the blink of an eye, they came to the bottom of Jiyu's feet. Jiyu suddenly kicked out. That person suddenly flew backward and fell into the bloody ground. The rest of the people raised their heads and fixed their gazes on Jiyu. Suddenly, an axe shot out and landed in Jiyu's hand. The king of the West region had never expected that he would end up like this, even though he had been hiding his strength at the peak of the 9th level of the Earth Profound Realm. The profound energy in his body seemed to be suppressed by Jiyu. Jiyu flew forward. In the blink of an eye, the rest of the people jumped down. When they saw this scene, they turned their heads. They did not see anything behind them. The rest of the people suddenly gathered around them and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Jiyu's figure flashed, and she disappeared from where she was. Jiyu shot forward and disappeared from where she was. The king of the West region appeared in front of Jiyu in an instant. Jiyu suddenly reached out, grabbed his neck, and slowly lifted him up. She grabbed him with both hands and disappeared from where she was in an instant. He felt that all the bones in his body were about to break. Kacha, kacha, kacha. Sound could be heard. He raised his head and looked in the direction of Jiyu. Chapter 788. Jiyu's figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. After a while, Jiyu suddenly slapped out. A mouthful of blood flowed out. The rest of the people glanced at each other. Jiyu took a step forward and said indifferently, "What about you?" After hearing this, they glanced at each other. Jiyu said indifferently, "If you don't speak, it's your turn." After hearing these words, the hearts of the kings of the 4 domains started to thump. They made up their minds and stepped forward. They kept kowtowing to Jiyu and said, "My king, please forgive us. We were wrong." Only then did Jiyu slowly raise his hand. The rest of the people suddenly stood up. He said indifferently, "Pass down my order. Kill them." After hearing this, the rest of the people gathered together. The kings of the 4 regions retreated and summoned the ministers. After hearing this, they raised their heads. They wanted to say something, but didn't know what to say. At this moment, they glanced at each other. All the ministers looked at their monarchs. At this moment, the monarchs said slowly, "Start counting the number of people in each region." After hearing this, all the ministers were stunned. King of the Northern region, we can't afford to fight anymore. Everyone looked at each other. He raised his head. After hearing this, the king of the Northern region's heart suddenly trembled. However, when he thought of the king of the Western region's fate, a trace of fear appeared in his heart. He said indifferently, "What do you want to do?" After hearing these words, they retreated and disappeared in the blink of an eye. After a while, they slowly walked forward. They all knelt in front of Jiyu. They turned their gazes to the front. Ji said indifferently, "Are your things out?" The kings of the four regions knelt in front of Ji and said indifferently, "Who are you?" After hearing this, they looked at each other. The kings of the four regions took a step forward. At this moment, Xian Qi quickly gathered. The rest of the people looked into the palace. Ji said plainly, "Go ahead and report it." After hearing this, they looked at each other. At this moment, they slowly raised their heads and put the things on the table. After witnessing this scene, Zhang Xian was stunned. Ji said indifferently, "Report it." The king of the northern region stepped forward first. "My lord, we have a total of people in the defensive profound realm. Don't mention those below the human profound realm." After these words were spoken, Yi Zichen nodded. They raised their heads at the same time and calmly said to Ji, "There are a total of 130,000 people in the human profound realm." "Me too. Me too." The kings of the four regions all said the same thing. Ji nodded. That was to say, their state could only use about 500,000 soldiers. Chapter 789. Under Ji's command, all the human profound realm experts gathered in front of the evolving shrine. They all knelt on the ground and looked in the direction of Ji. Ji said indifferently, "Are you willing to bring the glory of the central state to the land of the 13 states?" "Yes, yes." They all shouted in unison. Ji nodded in satisfaction and walked forward. After seeing Ji, a thought suddenly appeared in their minds. This was their king. She was really too powerful. Ji took a step forward. She suddenly raised her hand. At this moment, the people around her slowly stepped forward. In the blink of an eye, their bodies flashed, and they suddenly disappeared from where they were. They slowly walked forward. At this moment, heavenly thunder rumbled. At this moment, tears fell from the sky. They saw that the lightning gathered in Ji's hand. Looking at the power of the lightning, they all knelt on the ground. "Panda, Panda!" At this moment, everyone rushed out one after another and landed on the ground. They raised their heads at the same time and gathered together at this moment. Dark force circled in their hearts and quickly gathered strong dark force. Right at this moment, the profound energies started to gather in his hands. Then, the profound energies started to scatter in all directions. Right at this moment, the profound energies started to scatter in all directions. The power of lightning exploded in all directions with a loud rumble. Seeing this, Ji's body flashed, and she disappeared from where she was. Ji's hands contained strong dark force. Ji said indifferently, "Pass down my order." Set off. At this moment, more than 500,000 people gathered together and walked out in another direction at the same time. After shouting these words, the people around them flew in front of Ji. They gathered the dark force in their hands. In an instant, the powerful dark force flew out and exploded on the ground. At this moment, that ball of Xian energy flashed and disappeared from the spot. Among the 13 prefectures on the continent, the Cloud Herder state was built by the imperial court. It was different from the other prefectures. They basically decided the winner by the number of people they had. Suddenly, there was an urgent report from the border. Countless ministers walked to the front of the hall. They all knelt on the ground and said to Mu Yunfei in front of them, reporting to Grand Ancestor, "There's an urgent report from the border. 100,000 soldiers from the central province have arrived at our border." In the past, behind Iron Lawn Mountain, there was only a layer of thick fog. Those who lived in the thick fog were unable to pass through this layer of fog and remained there forever. They all knelt on the ground, hoping that their lord would give them a way out. After saying this, Mu Yunfei stood up and said, "Is anyone willing to go?" After hearing this, they looked at each other and knelt on the ground. Then, they slowly said to Mu Yunfei in front of them, "We are willing to go." The ones who spoke were the 5 emperors. The Cloud Herder state was divided into 13 prefectures. The remaining people looked at each other. The remaining people stepped forward. After seeing this, the remaining emperors all said, "We are also willing to go." Chapter 790. After the meeting was adjourned, the prefecture overseers of the 13 prefectures began to discuss in private. Young lord, what should we do? If we let those bastards in, will we still have a good life? After hearing those words, his heart skipped a beat. That's right. If the prefecture overseers of the 13 prefectures were to participate in the battle, wouldn't he lose his position as crown prince in the future? When he thought of this, his mood suddenly dropped. Who is our biggest competitor? He asked faintly. Hearing this, the two of them looked at each other and whispered in a low voice. He said softly, "That's the Dawn Cloud Cavalry." Humph. When the time comes, we'll let them go first. After saying this, everyone looked at each other. No one knew what they were thinking in their hearts. The sound of drums rang out continuously. Crown Prince Mu Yunran smiled faintly. Let's go. Let us see how much of a piece of trash that lives by hiding is. The 13 armies arrived at the Thousand Dang Pass at the same time. When the soldiers saw the army led by Gu, they couldn't help but feel a trace of admiration in their hearts. This army's composure, this profound chi, was truly one of a kind in the world. However, if they want to defeat us with this, they're looking down on everyone in the world too much. Du Fei took a step forward and cupped his hands, reporting to Crown Prince, "This subject is useless. I'm willing to be the vanguard of the army and cut off that bastard's head." Before they left, Mu Yunfei didn't tell them that Jiyu was a sky profound realm expert. Otherwise, no matter how powerful they were, they wouldn't dare to say such a thing. All right, you go. Du Fei led the 3,000 spirit profound realm experts and rode out of the pass. He pointed the large blade in his hand at Jiyu's direction. "Bastard, come out and accept your death." With a roar, the strength of the earth profound realm suddenly appeared. 2 horses fell to the ground and blood splattered from their faces. "Ha ha ha! Useless things! Where is Jiyu? Come out and accept your death." Jiyu didn't move. It wasn't his turn to personally deal with trash with this level of strength. The general beside him had long since turned red from listening. Disciple Li Fei is not talented, but I am willing to go and ask for advice. Yes. As Jiyu's indifferent voice fell, Li Fei held his long sword and landed on the ground. The unique black, profound energy of the earth profound realm suddenly covered his entire body. Profound skill, violent wind slash. In a short moment, Li Fei swung his sword thousands of times. In the sky, a silvery light flashed. Every ray of silver light that fell collided with the stone wall. Boom! Another loud sound rang out, and smoke and dust billowed, covering the surroundings. In an instant, they raised their heads at the same time. Suddenly, the sound of wind rose from all directions, gradually forming a large circle inwards. The blades gradually fell, as if countless heads were rolling down. Du Fei himself was an expert of the earth profound realm, so he could naturally rely on his strong, profound strength to resist this wave of profound strength. However, who were those people beside him? They were just pitiful weaklings of the human profound realm. Under Li Fei's profound skill, the smell of blood continuously spread and rushed in all directions. No, my iron army. At this moment, he felt as if his heart was being torn apart. Chapter 791. His gaze locked onto Li Fei. "Thief, how dare you kill my soldiers?" "Humph, this is a battlefield." Li Fei led the profound realm experts into the enemy's crowd. He was cutting the heads of the soldiers of the Muyun state as if he was cutting vegetables. He couldn't hold back anymore. Du Fei immediately shouted, "Retreat, retreat." "You want to leave?" Li Fei appeared in front of him in the blink of an eye. The long saber in his hand fell like lightning. A head was placed right in front of him. Ji nodded in satisfaction and looked at the city wall. "The goddess will bless us. Soldiers, follow me and kill." After shouting these words, the soldiers beside him kicked the bellies of the horses and rushed out one after another. Another disciple, Chu Fei, took the lead. He gathered all the dark force in his body and waved his long sword, bombarding the city wall. The city wall collapsed with a loud bang. It was a loud boom. The city wall turned into ashes. The remaining people shouted and rushed into the city pass. Blood once again dyed the city pass red. They stood on top of the city wall. Crown Prince Myunrin was forced to stand in front of Jiyu. Jiyu said coldly, "Kill them." Myunrin never expected that the 13 prefectures couldn't withstand Jiyu's attack. What kind of strength was this? How could the power of a single prefecture be so strong? They all gathered together and surrounded the city walls, casting their gazes outwards. At this moment, they gathered. He raised his machete and chopped off their heads from their horses. He galloped his war horse and came to the front of the matrix. Jiyu said indifferently, "Myunfei, I'm here for you. Old ancestor, don't go." In the imperial city, a group of ministers knelt down. Jiyu was not a normal person. He was clearly a demon. He was here to take their lives. Myunfei closed his eyes. He never thought that after so many years of painstakingly managing the Myun state, he would end up like this just because he wanted to humiliate Jiyu in the central state. After letting out a sigh, the Emperor Qi returned to his body. "What are you crying for? I'm not dead yet. I'm the governor of the Myun prefecture, so I naturally have to rule over all the people in the world. I'm going to kill this little Jiyu in front of the city walls. Long live the old ancestor." Myunfei held the golden spear in his hand and walked out of the palace. He looked down at the majestic army below the city walls and said with a trace of disdain, "Where is Jiyu?" Jiyu rolled her eyes at him. She took out a small piece of metal and held it between her fingers. Then she swung it heavily. The golden leaf was like a sharp long knife. Myunfei's aura energy was instantly broken apart. Such powerful, profound strength. "Jiyu, you're here. Do you dare to come out and see me? What kind of hero are you to use such despicable moves?" Jiyu spurred her horse and took 2 steps forward. The White Lion King Xianbi squatted at the side. It looked extremely vigilant, as if it would tear anything that dared to approach Jiyu. "She's come out. Where are the 13 golden generals? Kill her." "Granny, Granny, Mimi." A series of low murmurs sounded as if someone was whispering about something. Chapter 792. Suddenly, 13 black figures flew out. Their target was Jiyu. Jiyu smiled. In the blink of an eye, 13 black figures suddenly landed in front of Jiyu. Their long swords were pointed directly at Jiyu. Those long swords suddenly fell. In a flash, Jiyu disappeared from her original spot. After a moment, she swung the long sword in her hand. Ding! There was another resounding boom, and Jiyu abruptly retreated. Seeing the giant sword coming down, the long sword was swung in Jiyu's direction. Jiyu did not move. The Lion King roared and fought with the 13 men in black. "You actually have a heaven-grade mystical beast. No wonder you are so arrogant. But so what? My 13 shadow guards are the strongest people in the world. Die." After shouting these words, he jumped down and swung the long sword in his hand in the direction of Jiyu's neck. Jiyu smiled. In a flash, she disappeared from her original spot. After a moment, she appeared behind him. It was as if she was the god of death, announcing his death. "No, I can't accept this." He roared angrily. He turned around and swung the long sword at Jiyu. Jiyu's body flashed, and she disappeared. What a fast speed! They all sighed. Suddenly, Jiyu appeared in the void. Those long swords suddenly swung down. Boom! 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 3 violent sounds were heard. The thick fog in front of them gradually disappeared. Jiyu landed on the city wall. Her penetrating gaze locked on them. "Kill!" After shouting these words, the people around her jumped down. At the same time, they pulled out their long swords and attacked the surrounding crowd. Screams were heard at the same time. They were stabbed by the long swords and let out tragic cries. At the same time, they fell into a pool of blood. Blood spurted out of Myunfei's mouth as dozens of people flew out from behind him. Jiyu smiled. Myunfei truly cherished his life. However, he was too naive to think that these people could stop her. His figure flashed and disappeared from his original spot. After a while, he was already in the void. The sky profound realm had the power to fly. He stepped into the void. The power of thunder and lightning in his hand kept crackling. The power of thunder and lightning suddenly struck down. Bolts of lightning struck the vast land in front of him. The remaining people suddenly raised their heads and looked in the direction of Ji. In the blink of an eye, they raised the treasures in their hands and stabbed at Ji. Ji's body flashed and appeared in front of Mu Yunfei. Mu Yunfei suddenly turned around. His hands were filled with dark force. Just as he was about to slap forward, Ji suddenly disappeared. When she reappeared, she was already in front of him. The power of the treasures suddenly fell and stabbed his body. After being stabbed by the dark force, Mu Yunfei no longer had any dark force fluctuation. As Ji's Kuan Peng giant sword suddenly moved, his dantian instantly ruptured. Ji felt that her power of the 5 elements had directly broken through to the peak of the 5th level of the sky profound realm at this moment. Chapter 793. Mu Yunfei's body was placed in front of everyone. They chained the corpses to the carriages, and together with the remaining people, they led the carriages and rode out in all directions. They walked in all directions and looked outside. The rest of the people gathered, and the person in the carriage jumped in front of Ji. They walked out of their houses. When they saw the people in the carriage, they were shocked. It was unbelievable. They took a deep breath and raised their hands. He raised his hand heavily. At this moment, the sound of drums suddenly sounded in the surroundings. At this moment, the people in the surroundings gathered and slowly walked forward in another direction. They fell to the ground and cried in pain. "Master, my king!" Seeing this, Ji's army did not pay any attention to them. They turned around and walked in another direction to capture them. They all walked in another direction. The remaining people flew and attacked Ji. Ji suddenly raised the Kuan Peng giant sword in his hand and slashed it down heavily. The enormous dark force instantly flew out of the Kuan Peng treasure weapon. Ji said indifferently, "Let's go. The Xintian prefecture will be our next target," Lin Yun said. In Xintian province. In the main hall, everyone was drinking crazily. Since Lord Tianqi unified all the sects, there was nothing for them to work on. They lay on the table and kept raising their wine glasses. They drank one glass after another. The remaining people looked at each other and got up. In the blink of an eye, Ji flew forward and landed on the ground. He stood on the city wall and said indifferently, "Xintian province, surrender obediently." After saying this, the people who were drinking put down the wine glasses in their hands. They stood up and disappeared in an instant. When they landed on the ground, they raised their heads at the same time and looked in front. At this moment, the experts of Xintian province shot out one after another. Standing on the ground, they fixed their eyes on Ji at the same time. At this moment, those people looked at each other and jumped down in the blink of an eye. They fixed their eyes on Ji. "Boy, I don't know where you came from, but you're too arrogant. Come at me together." When Ji saw how forthright Mo Yang was, the corners of her mouth involuntarily curled into a smile. At this moment, they landed on the ground and fixed their eyes on Ji. At this moment, the remaining people flew in front of Ji. They looked at each other and got up. At that moment, he raised his hand and launched an attack in Ji's direction. Ji suddenly took a few steps back. He raised his hand, and the treasure in his hand suddenly emitted a ray of light. At this moment, a mystical beast landed on the ground. Its whole body emitted a red light, as if it was roaring. It pounced in Ji's direction. Ji suddenly slashed forward with his sword. Chapter 794. Boom! Another loud sound rang out. The Xin beast fell to the ground. It struggled to get up, but when it looked at Ji, there was a trace of fear in its eyes. Ji snorted coldly. A ball of Xin Qi appeared in her hands. That ball of Xin Qi swung forward and another violent explosion rang out. That person fell heavily to the ground. Tianxian province's governor, Daoist Tianqi, never expected that the Xian beast that he had nurtured would be smashed into a bloody mist by a single punch. His heart was filled with rage. He leaped up and swung his fist in the direction of Jiyu. Another ball of Xian Qi erupted at this moment, charging directly towards the governor. After seeing this, Jiyu disappeared in a flash. Daoist Tian Qi roared angrily, "Jiyu, how dare you?" After roaring this sentence, he suddenly saw Jiyu's body in his body flash. In the blink of an eye, she appeared behind the governor. The profound force in his hands suddenly dropped down, and with a boom, another punch fell down. That fist slammed into the governor's body. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Daoist Tianqi never expected that he would be finished like this. He gasped for breath and said, "Jiyu, you will become the devil of the 13 prefectures. You deserve to die." As soon as his voice fell, his body rapidly expanded. It gathered in the air and gradually shattered. Boom! Everyone in Tianxian province saw this scene. Looking at the blood floating in the air, fear grew in their hearts. Ji raised his hand, and all the soldiers stood up and slowly walked forward. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared on the spot. They all landed in front of Jiyu and knelt on the ground. "Greetings, new lord." Some of the more courageous ones were infuriated when they saw them surrender. However, there was nothing they could do. After gathering the forces of 3 prefectures, Jiyu decided to launch a large-scale attack on the remaining 10 prefectures. The prefecture kings of the 10 prefectures had gathered. They did not expect that the wrong decision they made back then would cause the entire clan to fall into a crisis. They gathered together and discussed what they should do next. He only has the strength of 3 prefectures, and there are still 2 prefectures that have just been consolidated. His strength is probably not that great, so I've decided to gather the strength of our 10 prefectures and fight to the death with him. Yes, that's right. Fight to the death. Heavenly Evil Emperor, the hope of the people of the 9 states is in your hands. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. In order to obtain the power of the life and death mysterious realm, I have to try. Let's see who can land among the kings of this province. The Heavenly Evil Emperor's immortal Tao is eternal. They all cheered and walked out of the door. At this moment, there was a thundercloud in the sky. All the experts of the 10 prefectures appeared and walked toward the border of Zhongzhou. They flew and landed in the crowd. Heavenly Evil Emperor looked in the direction of the crowd. "Jiyu, why don't we fight today?" Chapter 795. Jiyu's body suddenly flashed. Her strength of LV5 of the heavenly profound realm made him gasp. "Jiyu, go to hell." After shouting these words, the dark force in their hands quickly gathered together. They flew down, and the 2 powerful dark forces collided with each other. Boom! Another loud sound was heard. The 2 of them retreated to the side. Jiyu floated in the air. They were surprised that the other's dark force was so powerful. A red light shone from the Kuan Peng prize treasure, and a flaming bird soared into the sky. It then solidified in the air, and the prize treasures on Jiyu's body appeared one after another. They merged with the power of the Kuan Peng precious weapon. When the 2 balls of profound energy gathered together, it was as if they were a ball of raging fire as they fell down directly. Emperor Heavenly Evil snorted. A ball of black flame appeared in his hands. At this moment, the black flame spread around his hands. At this moment, the 2 balls of flames collided with each other. Another boom was heard, and the black flames gradually spread towards the other party's body. The black flames seemed like they would never be extinguished. Jiyu snorted coldly, and the Kuan Peng fire on his body suddenly burned, burning together with the black flames. One was the evil and evil flame of time, while the other was the purest flame in the world. The 2 flames burned together, creating a raging inferno that reached the sky. It seemed like the whole world was going to burn. Jiyu snorted and punched forward. Boom! Another loud sound was heard. The sky seemed to be torn apart. At this moment, the flames in the sky fell down. People looked around for a safe place. However, there were also many people who jumped out one after another to protect these weak people. Both of them were the most powerful existences in the world. If either side lost, then the remaining side would meet the end of death. Jiyu sneered. With a flash of his body, he floated in the void. Then he punched out again. His fist burned like a ball of fire as it hit Emperor Heavenly Evil's body. "Oh no, my spirit!" he exclaimed. His body flashed and appeared behind Jiyu. As the Lord of the Union of 10,000 Immortals, he couldn't allow himself to be defeated. He turned around abruptly. Their fists collided with each other. Both of their faces were filled with madness. "Go to hell! Go to hell!" Both of them shouted at the same time. Their dark forces collided with each other. At this moment, the flame was floating in the void. At this moment, the flames began to burn. The flames soared into the sky, burning everything around them. After seeing this, Jiyu's body suddenly flashed and disappeared from where he was. A moment later, he appeared where he was standing. She raised the dark force in her hand and punched downwards. That mass of Xian energy heavily collided together. Boom! Another ball of fire exploded. At this moment, the flames started to burn in all directions and on Emperor Heavenly Evil's body. Heavenly Evil Emperor screamed in agony. Chapter 796. A ball of golden light emerged from the spot where Jiyu had struck him. The ball of golden light spread out in all directions, like fragments, and gradually fell to the ground. "Ha ha ha! I actually lost! I actually lost!" After roaring this sentence, his body seemed to be like a ball of thick fog, and gradually shattered. At this moment, Emperor Heavenly Evil turned around and disappeared from where he was. After a while, he floated in the void, and the ball of dark force gathered in his hand. A rune seemed to appear, and the rune hit the ground. Suddenly, a golden light flashed, and it seemed that the rune was spreading in the direction of Jiyu. Jiyu snorted and stepped on the ground, causing the ground to tremble. At this moment, the ball of golden light gradually dissipated. His body flashed, and he disappeared from the ground. "Hooray! You are not strong enough to defeat me." There was a trace of despair in Emperor Heavenly Evil's eyes. When the prefecture lords of the 10 prefectures saw that the leader of the Union of 10,000 Immortals was killed by Jiyu, they retreated like frightened birds. Gradually, a feather formed on the ground. Jiyu reached out and grabbed it. Suddenly, the feather flew out and slowly fell into Jiyu's hand. After Jiyu caught the feather, he stepped on the ground and disappeared in an instant. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. As the feather fluttered in the air, the people of the 10 prefectures knelt on the ground, welcomed the master of the world. On the second day, everyone was busy. Jiyu issued the order as the master of the world. First, from today onwards, no one was to kill dark beasts at will. Second, Jiyu turned his dark force into dark stones so that there would be an endless supply of dark stones on this continent. Third, no one was to start a war at will. Fourth, do not force others to do anything that goes against Jiyu's orders. Over 1,000 decrees were issued, and everyone cheered. At the same time, Jiyu led the people to restore the 4 seas, and the 13 prefectures and prefectures resumed their trade. Every family set up a memorial tablet for Jiyu. They began to worship this living immortal. Jiyu fulfilled her promise. In front of the evolving temple in the central region, all the nobles and officials from all over the world were rushing in this direction. Today was the wedding day of the World Lord. The 7-colored heavenly snake, the Jiang sisters, the Queen of Ice and Frost, the princesses of the 3 kingdoms, and so on. They all stood behind him. Everyone looked at this scene happily. Everyone's Xian beasts walked out of the sea and mountains in a grand wedding. Xiaogu lay on Jiyu's body with a blissful expression. At this moment, the Lion King had regained his freedom. He roared as he returned to the mountains. From today onwards, He was the king of the Xian beasts. A year later, the sound of children falling to the ground could be heard. Jiyu hugged his 3 sons and 2 daughters excitedly. This was the continuation of his life. He tapped each of their foreheads lightly. In an instant, the 5 children broke through to the peak of the profound world realm. Now, other than him, there were 13 profound sky realm experts. These people were either Jiyu's disciples or his women. Chapter 797. Another year passed by. Jiyu sensed that there was something in his body that was summoning something. He walked out of the door, raised his head, and gathered a ball of Xian energy in his hands. At this moment, the sky gradually gathered, as if there was a whirlpool that was spiraling. Jiyu, God is here to guide you back to the God realm. From today onwards, you are God's servant. Ding! Congratulations to the host for breaking through to the Saint Profound realm. Jiyu's body was constantly breaking, gathering, and breaking. Every part of his body could be combined freely. Servant? The corners of Jiyu's mouth curled up into a smile, looking very demonic. Suddenly, a golden light shone into the evolving temple. A figure appeared outside the evolving temple. He said angrily, Jiyu, why don't you come out and meet the immortal? Get lost. A light sentence flew out, as if it was a spell, and hit the immortal. He was only at the sky profound realm, far from Jiyu's Saint Profound realm. Until the moment his soul was destroyed, he still couldn't understand how a person who had always been in the mortal world could have Xian energy that surpassed his. The sky seemed to be about to be destroyed. Perhaps it had sensed Jiyu's actions. There was a broken sound in the sky. Jiyu, you deserve to die for offending the heavens. At this moment, Jiyu stood up, as if he had broken the sky. He walked towards the sky step by step, and with a flash of light, he disappeared from the mortal world. The heaven realm was born from countless realms. Jiyu tore apart the guardians of the realms and stood in front of the gate of heaven. At this moment, a few peak sky profound realm existences flew out and stood in front of Jiyu. Under the sound of thunder, they said to Jiyu, Jiyu, how dare you offend the heaven realm? How should you be punished? No one can make me a servant, including you, heaven. How dare you? One of the heavenly immortals roared furiously. With a flash of his body, it was as though he possessed the might of the heaven and earth. With a casual grab, a boundless power was born. If this was in the mortal world, this grab would have been able to shatter the heaven and earth. He swung his arm in the direction of Jiyu. Right at this moment, the dark force seemed to be destroying the world. Right at this moment, a ball of lightning appeared in the sky and suddenly struck down. Boom, boom, boom. Another 3 loud noises were heard. Suddenly, heaven and earth collapsed. Jiyu stood up, and in a flash, she appeared behind the celestial immortal. The dark force in her hand transformed into a long sword, and she abruptly stabbed the celestial immortal's back. Boom! Another loud sound rang out. The sky seemed to shatter as the celestial immortals fell into the mortal world. Jiyu didn't have a fixed treasure artifact. Just by thinking about it, the treasure artifact would constantly change. Her body flashed and instantly disappeared from the spot. In the next moment, she grabbed one of the people by the neck and said heavily, "Die." After he shouted those words, the power of lightning suddenly burst forth. The lightning continued to strike down and suddenly exploded in all directions. Boom, 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 boom. 3 loud sounds were heard. Chapter 798. Everyone around them was reduced to a pile of scorched earth. Just then, they landed in front of Jiyu. His body flashed, and he disappeared from the spot in an instant. The great artifact transformed into a long snake and gradually flew towards Jiyu. Jiyu abruptly flashed backwards and disappeared from the spot she was standing on. In the blink of an eye, she flew into the sky. With incomparable majesty, she slowly opened her mouth and said, "Die." There was a loud boom and another clap of thunder. Suddenly, she fell from the sky. Seeing this, Jiyu's body flashed, and she disappeared from where she was. The celestial immortals panicked. Jiyu is so strong. Divine General, save us. In the sky, a voice came from the void. Those who offend the god realm shall be killed. After this voice, a man in armor appeared in front of Jiyu. Suddenly, 2 balls of dark energy gathered in his hands. Kill! Jiyu suddenly jumped up and passed through the sun, moon, and stars. She clenched her fists tightly and held a star in her hand. Then, she slammed it down on the man. Boom! There was a loud sound and dust flew up. As if wanting to devour everything in this world, the divine general flew into the void. The surroundings were dark, and only the countless stars were emitting their own light. Divine skill, mysterious heavenly transformation. At this moment, countless stars gathered together like a long saber. Suddenly, they slammed down in Jiyu's direction. Jiyu only punched out and the countless stars seemed to shatter. She reached out and grabbed at the divine general. Suddenly, she passed through the layers of stars and smashed into the ground. Countless black holes appeared in the sky. The divine general was a little crazy at this moment. He shouted at Jiyu ferociously, "Go to hell." After shouting, those black holes flew in Jiyu's direction. Jiyu stretched out her hand, and the countless black lights shrunk rapidly and landed on her body. Jiyu's experience points continued to soar. She suddenly broke through and became a divine king, profound realm expert. At this moment, the divine realm was trembling. This was a dark energy that they couldn't resist. This was a dark energy that could destroy heaven and earth. Suddenly, this dark energy fell with a loud bang. Everything around them was collapsing. Suddenly, the world at this moment gradually disappeared. Jiyu floated in the void. She slowly raised her hand. Those black lights gradually floated up and gradually formed a deep night sky. All of a sudden, Jiyu realized that the black light had sucked in all 4 of the divine generals. The dark energy in his body was also surging crazily. When the dark energy gathered on his body, he seemed to have become one with this world. After passing through the boundless universe, it was as if everything was just a small bead. He came to a white world, and countless small black beads were rolling on the ground. The Supreme God gradually stood up from the throne. I didn't expect that there would be someone who could break through to the Divine King realm. There are a total of 13 Divine Kings from different realms. Chapter 799. A trace of vigilance appeared in Jiyu's eyes. So what? His voice didn't carry a trace of emotion. The paramount God King chuckled. At their level, every smile and every action they made would contain a trace of life within the countless worlds. So what? That's right. Every God King who arrives here has a chance to challenge the highest seat. If they lose, they can split their positions and control time and space, controlling the movement of time for us. Jiyu said indifferently, "Wouldn't that be reduced to a worker?" Hearing this, he was somewhat agitated. "You also came from Earth." "That's right." "Ha ha. I didn't expect that someone would finally come here. In this place, time has lost its meaning. Space has also lost its meaning. I can't feel my own existence. They can't feel it either. We only need to control time and let it flow forever." "Time is still a god?" Jiyu suddenly asked. After hearing this, they were all stunned. Logically speaking, time didn't exist. But all of this wasn't important. The 13 God Kings spoke one after another. "Make your move, Jiyu. Choose an opponent you want." Jiyu looked ahead and said indifferently, "I want you, Supreme God King. Challenge me. If you lose, you might disappear. If you only become a slave to time, what's the meaning of your existence?" They were merely existences. They had no life. They had no meaning. This sentence was equivalent to scolding all the God Kings present. With a cold snort, they gathered together and disappeared from the spot in a flash. An endless amount of profound energy started to attack from who knows where. Ji merely raised his hand and punched out. The punch of a peak god king could destroy countless worlds. This punch couldn't be described with words. The god king standing beside Ji, you didn't expect that Ji you would suddenly attack. Are you trying to destroy order? Order. Your existence is the one that is destroying order. Impudent. After shouting this sentence, the two of them slammed their palms together, and a huge explosion occurred around them. The power of destruction directly covered the sky and the earth. This world was gradually sinking, as if there was a tsunami that swallowed up the surroundings. It was as if the sea had accepted their return. The three god kings were instantly swept up by this power and disappeared from this world. The supreme god king coldly said, "You want to destroy us? Naive." After roaring out those words, he raised the golden walking stick in his hand and abruptly slammed it onto the ground. At this moment, profound energy began to spread out in all directions. At this moment, that surge of profound energy was engulfing the surrounding heaven and earth energy. Jiyu's figure flashed, and he vanished on the spot. In an instant, the color of the sky changed. The white space now had a different color to it. Jiyu abruptly stretched out her hand and beckoned. The supreme god king and the 10 great god kings under him disappeared together. Jiyu stood in a place without any color, space, or time. She calmly said, "Are you still not coming out? The god of time? Haha. I didn't expect that after so many years, someone would still see through me. The god of fate was killed by you. What an interesting existence." Jiyu calmly said, "From today onwards, the god of time will no longer exist." Kill me? That will disrupt time. From today onwards, time will become countless branches. Space will also not be space. They will not be able to link together and will not be able to produce an endless stream of experts. Is this what you want? Jiyu coldly laughed. "You are toying with all life, so you must die. Then let's do it." Jiyu abruptly waved her hand. Suddenly, the explosive Xian energy in the surroundings gathered together. The god of time's lips carried a trace of contempt. That ball of Xian energy continued to gather. Suddenly, time began to flow backwards. Jiyu's Xian energy flowed into the surroundings. Jiyu coldly smiled. The god of time did not understand what this divine king was laughing about. Jiyu merely flung his hand down heavily. So it turned out that he could reverse the flow of time. However, with the profound energy that had been infused with Jiyu's mental energy, even if it was reverse time, it would not be enough. It would also quickly merge with the Xian energy in the surroundings. A huge explosion resounded. It was as if heaven and earth were about to be torn apart. The god of time glared at Jiyu furiously. "You have destroyed time. Time will make you regret your decision." Jiyu coldly snorted and looked at the divine king's palace. The world did not need a master. They would naturally give birth to their own systems. Suddenly it fell. At this moment, the divine king's palace gradually collapsed. Chapter 800. Jiyu left the hall of the deity king. In a flash, he disappeared from his original spot. After traversing through space-time for an unknown distance, he felt a little tired and stopped. The sun, along with the 10 spheres, was flying forward rapidly. Jiyu gently pushed with his hand and broke through the pile of rubble. He passed through the circle of the sun and sensed the fury of Jupiter. He flew in and infused his dark force into the crystal-like material. Gradually, it formed a long sword. It would be very fun to give this sword to his child to play with. He returned to Earth. His parents in his previous life were still telling each other about their obedient child. Jiyu suddenly felt warm in his heart. He closed his eyes and drew out a trace of mental strength from his mind. The mental strength gradually formed an identical Jiyu. He suddenly became a billionaire in this world. In a world where dark force was not required, money was perhaps the only law of power. Jiyu said faintly, "Everyone, I hope you can be happy." In the blink of an eye, Jiyu disappeared from his original spot. Jiyu's clone knocked on the door. Jiyu's mother walked to the door in puzzlement and opened it. It was her son who had been missing for 2 years. His parents and Jiyu's clone hugged each other. When Jiyu appeared, he opened his palm and formed another universe. Perhaps he sensed Jiyu. He reached out and tapped the void. Life began to move again. Countless civilizations were being nurtured. In the next moment, countless people appeared on the ground. He returned to his own world again. It turned out that more than 10 years had passed. A strange boy stood in front of Jiyu. He felt that this person was very familiar. His wives walked out of the room. "You are so naughty. When your father comes back, he will definitely beat your buttocks." As soon as he finished speaking, his wives looked at Jiyu in a daze. Jiyu smiled and reached out to them. Together, they flew through the various universes. In the blink of an eye, they landed on the ground and slowly raised their heads. At this moment, the ball of Xian energy gathered in their hands. In an instant, Jiyu placed the most precious thing on the planet on his wife's head. No one knew how many years had passed. They felt that they no longer had the interest to play outside. After returning to the continent, Jiyu stood in the middle of the mansion. She stretched out her hands, and a straight line appeared in her palms. This was the line of time. He smiled faintly and clenched his hands into fists, causing countless time branches to appear. Only then could it be considered as releasing all the time and all the lives. The same thing could be used by countless evolvers. A new question hovered in Jiyu's mind. Then, who was the one who established time? Now that he had a question in his heart, he wanted to get to the bottom of it. If you want to know, follow me. Suddenly, a voice rang out in his heart. Jiyu suddenly flew out, passing through who knew how many worlds. Finally, they arrived in front of a cloud of black fog. "You've come. Who are you?" "The Creator." "Why are you looking for me?" "Ha ha ha, I'm old. The Creator also has a lifespan. I can create everything, but I can't stop it from dying. So I chose you." "Chose me?" "That's right. Your system and your encounters were all arranged by me. Do you think I'm a clown?" "No, but I'm very surprised that you can come here today." "Why?" "No reason. Are you willing to take on the responsibility of being the Creator?" Black Fog said to Jiyu in an incomparably serious tone. "As long as you accept it, you may be lonely, but this will allow you to have your own descendants, as well as the reincarnation of your wives. You can have everything, and you can change everything." Jiyu smiled faintly. "Is that so? Accept it. I'm about to disappear. If you don't accept it, all life will be destroyed." Jiyu stretched out his hand. The Creator came in front of Jiyu. At this moment, the black fog was devouring Jiyu, quickly merging with Jiyu as one. At this moment, he was the Creator. At this moment, he could see any place in this world. He could see any cause and effect, and could see the birth and destruction of everything. Jiyu would become eternal. He took a deep breath and turned his consciousness into 13 clones. He sent them to the 13 worlds. He gave each of the 13 clones different fates. He was looking forward to what all of this would be like. Would there be something that could escape the control of the Creator? With a flash of golden light, a young man was brought to a continent by the golden light. Ding! Congratulations to the host for activating the 999X cultivation system. Ding! Congratulations to the host for taking the first step. Basic movement technique experience points gained. 1*999X. Time continued to pass. Jiyu watched silently as everything unfolded, and a faint smile appeared on his face. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.